Going to call a special call meeting to order. Thursday, the 6th of January, 2005. Special call is hereby given. A special call meeting of the City Council of the City Homestead on January the 6th, 2005 at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers at City Hall. And the item for discussion is a discussion and or action on the baseball stadium. This evening we have Councilman Losnes present, Councilman Hodge, Vice Mayor Bell, Councilman Porter, Councilwoman Garner, and Councilwoman Woolman. The discussion or action of the baseball stadium falls under the Park and Rec Committee, headed by Councilwoman Woolman, so she will be conducting the meeting this evening. Let me thank all of you for coming. This is an exciting time for the City Homestead, and certainly this issue is one that we've been wrestling with for years and years and years. And I encourage you to, we will listen to your input. Hope that you take a minute, no more than a minute, to express your opinion on this issue. I don't know how many is going to speak this evening, but I'm pleased to now give this opportunity to the chairman of the Park and Rec Department Committee of the City Council, City Homestead, Councilwoman Judy Woolman.
Thanks, Mayor, and I noticed how quickly and so happy you were to get this to me tonight. Wow. I have to say that I never thought that this controversy would happen over this situation, especially after we've just made a decision similar to this, but much different in retrospect, and it was a unanimous vote, and it seemed fairly easy to do. But let me just preface this by saying that this meeting is strictly regarding the sale of the baseball stadium. We have a prospective buyer, and that buyer is Jeffrey Enterprises. I want to welcome any comments that you have, but we're going to limit any comments regarding, excuse me one second. After we hear from Jeffrey Enterprises and their spokespeople, then I'm going to have to limit it to probably a minute per person. And I have a little timer up here. I don't know how else to do it, but I'd like for Ms. Miller to come to the podium, and she will tell you who she represents and who she's here with. And you may have some spokespeople, Ms. Miller, that that you might wish to speak before I open it up to the General Assembly.
Thank you, Councilwoman Waldman, Honorable Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, and citizens of Homestead. I'm Sherry Miller. I'm the CEO of Jeffrey Industries International. We do have one person en route, Councilwoman Waldman, but I'm hoping he'll come in.
Okay. Well, when he gets here, we'll be sure to make time for him.
Thank you. Jeffrey Industries, in fact, could we start the PowerPoint?
I'm sorry, Sherry, but we can't hear you very well.
Could we start the PowerPoint?
Okay, with that, I need to ask Council to please move down onto the front row, please.
Not looking at the audience. Okay, I can't look at the audience. Senator Steinberg, would you please join me on the podium?
Yes.
while we're waiting, Jeffrey Industries was formed in 1984, and I'd like to introduce someone who was there when this corporation was formed, and he is Senator Paul Steinberg, Florida State Senator serving in the Florida House of Representatives from 1972 to 1978, and the Senate for one term from 1978 to 1982. He was the sponsor of the legislation that created the state of Florida Motion Picture, Television, and Recording Advisory Council, and was appointed to said body by Governor Graham, and later elected chairman of the council, and much, much more. He's been a legendary icon in this community and all of the state of Florida in the entertainment industry, and all the great organizations that have been formed to help it to thrive. Senator Steinberg.
Ms. Miller, may I ask you please to speak up? Ms. Miller, may I ask you please to speak up when you're on the microphone, because it's very hard to hear you over here.
Okay. It's hard for me not to look at who I'm talking to. This is a PowerPoint presentation we prepared for the project, and we are calling it Jeffrey's Homestead Miami Sports and Entertainment Complex, and we are presenting the Sports Summit of the Americas, and I'm hoping this will work. I think this will give you a good overview of some of the plans that we have, and give you a visual. While he's doing that, I would like to read a letter from Dr. Ferdy Pacheco. Dr. Ferdy Pacheco is the fight doctor to Ali, anchor for the Olympics covering boxing in China, to Showtime, HBO, Caesar's Palace, anchor in international television for boxing events over some 30 years as a legendary sports television anchor. And he will be the world spokesperson for Jeffrey Sports Summit of the Americas. And he has sent us a special letter. Congratulations to you and Jeffrey Industries on your ambitious and attractive undertaking to become the world headquarters of a worldwide baseball league, WBL, and the International Roller Derby, IRD, as an official sports summit of the Americas complex unlike any in the world. I am flattered that you would want me to be involved in this ambitious undertaking. After 30 years of sports broadcasting, I believe I can help guide that aspect of your operation, as well as serving as an international spokesman for this worthwhile endeavor. To be a part of such an exciting endeavor at its inception is very exciting to me. I will do my utmost to work with Sherry Miller to make this happen. Thank you again, Dr. Ferdy Pacheco. Okay, ready? This is sort of self-explanatory, and these are some of the... Oh, there's a cover. I'm sorry. We are working with some of your original photographs, so when you see all those cars and so forth, that's some old photographs. What we are going to do is make this a World Baseball League WBL headquarters and bring in players from a USA team, players from Latin America teams, Australia, Canada, Asian teams all over the world, and have national and international coverage. The International Roller Derby will become a world attraction brought back with high-tech imaginary graphics and so forth, and also be a very exciting televised event. We will include family-friendly events that include gospel Sundays, concerts and picnics, and a myriad of entertainment events for the entire family, and nominally priced so that they can be affordable for the entire family. All the activities and events will be available and accessible for the physically challenged. We would like to have soccer, softball, lacrosse, girls baseball, marching band exhibitions, scholarship beauty pageants, etc., etc. The national and global media exposure and promotion will be very exciting because we will be putting a lot of money into our advertising, promotion, public relations, and marketing programs. We intend to create in the Sports Summit of the Americas and bring in the consul generals, their international chambers of commerce, and all that would surround the 200 ball players that would be coming here and playing in our community. We plan to have a magazine publication that will go out and promote all of the events we have at the complex, acting as a souvenir program along with the other items listed there as part of the promotional program. And this will be ongoing every month. This will be events we plan in a monthly calendar, and it will go on every month for a full calendar year. We want programs that continue and keep going every day, every week, every month for all ages. So I think we can stop that now if you can. Thank you. And now maybe Senator Steinberg, will you kind of give everybody a background history of Jeffrey Industries? And I'll step back.
Excuse me, but are you finished with your slides with the presentation? Then I think council should resume their seats.
You think I kind of...
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead, Senator.
Thank you.
Can we have, you have the gavel, Mayor. Maybe you could get order down there.
Can we have your attention, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I was asked by Ms. Miller to represent their group relative to the acquisition of the property, which I know is very, very valuable property here in Homestead, and the continued use of it as a baseball stadium. As Ms. Renker mentioned, Sherry Renker Miller mentioned, I had the pleasure of forming her company, Jeffrey Industries, in the early 1980s, and have worked with her through various public relations and other projects that she's been involved in, really for better than 35 years. I had the pleasure of meeting her when she had her own society magazine that was working at the Jockey Club and Turnberry and Williams Island and those areas of Aventura and Miami. I know she has spent a tremendous amount of time putting this project together and being able to purchase the facility from the city of Homestead, which I know from my reading the articles about the facility has cost the city of Homestead substantial dollars over the year maintaining it, and that this would be a way, as far as I know, to allow it to be sold, money be put in the coffers of the city of Homestead, and a piece of property returned to the tax roll, so instead of being a negative, it becomes a positive for the future growth of the city of Homestead. I am here in a capacity where I will be serving as the attorney for Jeffrey Industries and the separate limited liability company, which hopefully will purchase the facility and continue to use it as a recreation facility, not only for the citizens of Homestead and Dade County for a sports complex, but hopefully for sports use for people from all around the world. I also look at what Ms. Renker Miller was saying initially to me, was that this also could be used for major televised events. And I know what that has done just to the city of Miami Beach from the time I've lived there, from Jackie Gleason days on, where you can take a facility and if you get the right national and international exposure, it helps not only the facility, but the whole community and the whole area of South Dade County. And that's what she has been looking for, is to buy a facility so that it becomes a positive for the city of Homestead. And I was very happy when she called me after not speaking to me for some time. I mean, I get calls maybe every 6 or 8 months when she's doing something, and asked me whether I would be glad to work with her in this acquisition, and sent me the PowerPoint and emails and all kinds of stuff. And I said my law firm would be glad to do it. We look forward to doing it, and that we would hope that this becomes a positive impact for the city of Homestead and continues to grow internationally, not only bringing the benefits of the racetrack, but now for the ball boil.
Thank you, Senator Steinberg.
Thank you, Senator. Let me just cut right to the chase and go to a very, very important aspect of this endeavor. Jeffrey Industries International will be creating an estimated approximate 150 to 200 initial jobs. These jobs will be for maintenance, grounds and landscaping, ball field improvements including fencing, batter's eye, scoreboard, bleachers, equipment and supply, pest control, housekeeping, linen services, on-site food and beverage including vending machines, security, event staffing, ushers and ticket takers, parking attendants, and a myriad of other operations and jobs. Up to an estimated 600 jobs for seasonal events and productions will escalate as the magnitude and success of the events grow year to year. We need to start immediately with the Homestead Job Corps providing a general cleanup crew for the entire facility, exterior and interior. The sports industry, according to a recent Barron's investment report, has outstripped and surpassed the growth of the overall economy, creating a total market opportunity estimated at more than $213 billion annually. The ripple effects for Homestead. A professional investment appraised analysis of the Jeffrey Industries proposed operating plan has been analyzed and projected to provide an estimated economic impact of some $130 million to the area. This is based upon year-round, constant, ongoing programs and events that could be provided. This economic impact estimate does not include the projected impact from international television exposure that could provide a worldwide viewing audience of some 800 million sports fans watching every gaming event. The pageantry of the World Baseball League will herald consul generals, their international chambers of commerce that will expose Homestead to new world business opportunities, the pageantry of cultural music, dance of the countries of the teams, celebrities from throughout the world performing for their home country teams' half-times and breaks. Jeffrey will retain the best in the business and top talent in the industry to manage, operate, and coordinate events and activities as experienced experts in their specific and targeted fields. A board of governors may be a roster of names of baseball lore that are legendary, that will also include honorary luminaries such as Ron Frazier and Florida Marlins and the Hurricanes. The International Roller Derby will also bring back an era of legendary sport uniqueness, glamour, and excitement with new high-tech, state-of-the-art presentation for television as well as the internet. The microphones and the helmets of skaters for reality show technique will be just one of the added sparks for the television audience. Working closely with the city's Parks and Recreation Department, ongoing youth programs may continue and even heighten to a new level of exposure through new programs and schools of training offered and provided. And because of the television licensing and product placement, tickets to events can be priced affordably for families in the immediate area who no longer have to buy gas to drive north or south for their families and entertainment together. Jeffrey welcomes an on-site charter school with such envisioned as an added addendum to provide cultural arts and theatrical training, as well as international languages, and the GAGE program, G-A-G-E, which stands for Geo-Agro Guardians of the Environment, that will be an international youth club for environmentalists and animal adversaries worldwide, and emphasized through co-oping with the Redland Tropical Garden Tours to provide local on-site exposure of 2 national parks, as well as working in tandem with the community to provide the most fabulous year-round blooming garden setting for the sports complex in the world to be showcased in special feature television shows, as well as a medicinal garden for GAGE student studies. Jeffrey Industries has also agreed to provide acreage for use by the city for a beautiful lakeside family picnic and walking and jogging on jogging trails. A myriad of additional entertainment events may be provided that will provide a ripple effect into the communities. Some 200 ball players will be coming to play ball at the sports complex, along with their families, friends, political and business dignitaries, and attracting their country's residents in South Florida, as well as across the entire USA. The television airing through special programming, as well as news coverage alone, will be a local, national, and international stimulant and economic generator. 12 months a year, ongoing, with a monthly calendar of events, unlike any other comparable entertainment venue anywhere. Advertised, promoted, and marketed all around the globe. We thank you for voting for this project, and we look forward to having you come to the stadium for our many events. Thank you.
May I ask you some questions, Ms. Miller? I'd like to ask you a series of questions, if you don't mind, similar to the ones that I asked you last night at the Tourism Board Committee meeting. And I will say at this time that it was approved and endorsed by the Tourism Board that the sale of this stadium does take place. I want to ask you, again, I know you said it in your speech, are you willing to set aside the 10 to 20 acres at fair market value as the Charter School USA had asked the city to do on Monday night? Are you willing to do that?
Yes, we are, and that's with the final approval of our lender, of course. But we are willing to do that. Yes.
Okay. I hope
we look forward to it. We welcome it.
And that would be in the contract?
Yes. That'd be fine.
I also want to make sure that the public understands that they are also willing to lease back to the city for a nominal fee, approximately $10 a year, maybe $1 a year, we don't know yet, but a very nominal fee, the lake that's on the front of the property and all the beachfront area that's around that.
That is correct.
Okay. And with that, our plans, well, I hope our plans would be to put a walking trail such as the one that they have at Baptist Hospital, a huge walking trail, and hopefully we could bring in Mr. Losner's vision of the lighting and maybe have it lit until 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, so for those of us who work and don't get home in the wintertime until after 6 and it's dark, that we would have some lighted venue to walk. I envision picnic tables, some benches, maybe some little barbecue pits, and all of that is agreeable with you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Also, there's been a lot of talk. I think there's been a lot of propaganda spread, but let's just end it at that. I think there's been a lot of talk about a circus, and I think people have been envisioning carnival acts and just, you know, craziness. It's my understanding that the circus that you were talking about was a performing arts circus that was similar to the Cirque du Soleil.
That's correct.
Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. I'm sure that some of you have been alarmed that you've heard that there are lions, tigers, and elephant circuses coming to town. The international circus productions that had been planned are similar but much grander and priced less expensively than Cirque du Soleil that is aired repeatedly on the Bravo channel, with the potential for Jeffrey's proposed circuses even greater in that the circus productions selected were representative of the multicultural diversity of the Latin, Asian, and African American residents of the areas. Bilingual shows and productions, the 50-year-old Tejani Mexican Circus has been acclaimed one of the greatest entertainment spectaculars in the world today. But their national tour has started, and the last 2 quarters Jeffrey has lost waiting in the wings for this project to be able to launch, and going into the third quarter, and now downtime of the annual height of the season in South Florida has deterred the circuses completely.
Thank you. I also want to, before I ask the next question, I've been asked by the city clerk to please ask you to please be careful with the pictures behind you. They're very heavy, and if one of them were to fall on you, there's very likely that you get hurt. So please be careful. Very important topic, our children here in the community. Will you be willing, as you said to me before, but on record, will you be willing to work with our youth sports leagues, our AYSO, our softball, all the facilities, all the teams and sports organized groups that use that facility? Will you be willing to work with them and keep
absolutely,
the same?
Absolutely. That's our mission statement. Jeffrey Industries, it was formed in 1981. The name Jeffrey is after a little boy of 12 years old. It was my late son that unfortunately was killed in a beach accident in California in 1981. And this company was dedicated in 1984 to family-friendly events and to children's activities. We brought some of the major sporting children's activities to South Florida, and that is part of our company profile. So we are dedicated to that end, to seeing the best for the children.
Because that's a very important issue to many people, I'm sure, in this audience. Uh-oh, one just bit the dust over there. But I want to make sure that you have no problem putting that as an addendum in your contract, that you are willing to work with our organized youth sports.
That's correct.
Okay. My next question is traffic. You know, everybody talks about traffic. The charter school traffic's another issue, but this is the traffic with the proposed sale of the stadium. Would you address that, please?
Traffic seems to be a problem everywhere in the world. In Coral Gables, where I was a national media consultant for the development department, they brought in a traffic specialist to do a study and alleviated a lot of their internal traffic problems there, as also cities like New York, Chicago, Orange County, California. And sometimes just by making new routes and having trucks go down streets at certain times, it's amazing how they can alleviate that traffic. And we saw it very fast in Coral Gables when that was done. So I think that that's a problem that every growing city faces in this day and age, where cars are a necessity, gas is a necessity. With the population comes this situation, and I think it's in every community that's growing, and Homestead's growing very fast. And so maybe it's the time to address it anyway.
Ms. Miller, I noticed last night that you were very shy to talk about your credentials, and I would like for you, since you mentioned the Biltmore, or you didn't mention the Biltmore, but since you mentioned Coral Gables, I'd like for you just so these people can rest assured that you are an experienced businesswoman.
Thank you. In 1984, Jeffrey Industries was formed, and in the 80s, we worked with the Greater Miami Host Committee, the City of Miami, and Dade County to bring in the Miss Universe, Miss USA pageants. We worked with the City of Coral Gables Development Department in coordinating 33 Latin American presidents to Coral Gables in the 90s for the Summit of the Americas. We have produced, created, and promoted and launched some of the most successful television shows in international television history, from the Bravo Awards, which was the first Latin Grammys, which is still to this day carrying the highest rated shows ratings in history. We've represented television entities such as London Weekly Television, Prospect Pictures from London. We brought in and helped to make their home in Coral Gables the USA Networks Latin America, Universal Studios Latin America. In fact, Senator Steinberg and I helped the founders of the SUR, S-U-R, Canal SUR, that so many of you see, that is the only network that broadcasts live from Latin America to the United States. We helped develop that company. And artists such as Julio Iglesias, Jacques Cousteau, Joe Robbie with his Pro Player Stadium, Miami Sound Machine, a myriad of artists and talent.
Let's get back to basics now. Thank you. Are you willing to allow us to continue with our 4th of July fireworks?
Yes, we are.
Free to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
not a problem.
Are you willing to work with the community college? Because I know that they have extended a hand of friendship to you as well.
Absolutely. We think it's a wonderful opportunity especially with their television media departments and their journalism departments. We want to get them aboard with us right away and have them working in this atmosphere.
Another issue that's been brought to my attention is we want to make sure that we remain family-oriented, family-friendly. I know you mentioned that on your slideshow. I just want to reiterate that to you.
That's what this company has been founded upon.
I know many of the people in last night's meeting asked for economic figures as far as cash infusion or employment into the community, and you commented on that. I think that's remarkable.
Thank you, thank you. And there would be more figures available, but we'd have to get to our professional executive staff, and time is kind of limited.
My last question to you before I turn it over to council for questions: are you financially secure enough to purchase this stadium? And for those of you that don't know, the offer on the table is what the city was asking for. It's a $19 million purchase.
Yes, we are. In fact, I'm going to ask our financier. I can't see him. Where is he? I know he's here tonight. I'm going to ask him if he'd like to come up. He is present.
Is he here?
He was here. I just was looking for him. Is Mr. Sparks here?
Dry land, 118.
Is Mr. Christitis still here? He's back there behind Mr. Gray.
What is his name?
Mr. Christitis.
Mr. Christitis, are you in the house? Mr. Christitis? Will you be, if he's outside or whatever, when he comes in, he can still speak. But I just want to know, I just want to make absolutely sure, and I don't want to use that old cliche that was used here many years ago, but we just have to make sure that you are financially secure. And what would the contract be contingent upon? The appraisal of the property?
Yes, we have to have a fully executed city contract and an MAI appraisal.
And how many days would you think that it would take before you would close on this purchase?
We're prepared to move very fast with this.
Okay.
Very fast.
Okay. I'd like to turn it over to the council for any questions that they may have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before we get too far afield, I have a procedural question, and it occurred to me as we were going to be seated for the PowerPoint presentation, and that is whether or not this matter is even properly before this council. Thank you, but let me finish. A few weeks ago, in Councilwoman Waldman's absence, this council considered, I believe, this very same issue as to whether or not we were going to proceed with a sale to Jeffrey Industries on these general terms. As a result of, there was a motion made to sell. The result of that, the resulting vote on that motion was a 3-3 tie. The legal effect of that is that the motion failed. At this point tonight, no one has moved who has the ability, from the way they voted last time, no one has moved to reconsider that question. And, you know, we had a 3-3 vote last time. Ms. Waldman was absent, and as we later learned, she had a conflict of interest because she and her husband were stood to gain compensation on the sale of public property, and she claims now to have purged herself of that conflict, and I guess we'll have to take that at face value. But my point is that this council's prior decision was that this would not be discussed. The matter was over, and I'd like to, I guess, ask the attorneys where we need to go from here to get this properly before us, or determine whether or not we're even going to consider this issue tonight.
Madam Chair, I'm having heard Mr. Wassner's statements.
Steve, is your microphone on?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, because the microphone's on. Having heard Mr. Wassner's statements, the item that was on the agenda at the prior meeting was specifically the sale of the stadium to Jeffrey Industries. And the disposition was, as Mr. Losner said, that the item on tonight's agenda for this special call meeting is a discussion / action regarding the baseball stadium. The meeting has been properly advertised, and it is a special call meeting for that particular purpose. At this point in the meeting, there has not been any motion made. If a motion is made that is identical to the motion at the prior meeting, then we would be in the situation where we would need to have first a vote to reconsider that particular item, and we would have to follow the rules on that.
Mr. Mayor?
Let me comment, because at the last meeting, that was not the issue.
Amen.
It was a recommendation by Councilman Porter that the staff look at potentially dividing the property, and that was the vote. It wasn't to deny the sale of the facility to Jeffrey Industries. That was my understanding.
There were two votes, Mr. Mayor. That is absolutely not correct. The first vote to sell failed by virtue of a tie, and then Mr. Porter had some discussion with staff about perhaps bifurcating the property whereby the city might retain part of it and part of it might be put up for sale. And Ms. Miller stated, and that passed, and Ms. Miller stated very clearly that they had no interest in buying less than all of the property. Clearly, by what's happening here tonight, any motion would be the identical motion. And, well, at the last time, Ms. Miller and her associates stood up and made their presentation, and if you were there or listened to the tapes, clearly it was going to be a decision whether or not to sell to Jeffrey Industries. That is, I don't care how it's noticed tonight, that's exactly what's happening here tonight. It is in effect the same question that's already been answered in the negative by virtue of a tie, and at this point it's not properly before us.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to comment on that. Actually, the last time that this item was before us, it was not to sell specifically to Jeffrey Industries. It was whether or not we were going to sell. However, Jeffrey Industries was here in support of us making our decision whether we would sell it or not, but the attorney that was sitting there at that time notified us that we cannot consider of whom we're going to sell it to until we decide whether or not we are going to sell. So Jeffrey Industry was not in that motion. It was whether or not we were going to sell, and that's what we was dealing with, whether we were going to sell the property or keep the property, regardless of whom we sell it to. This special call meeting is to make a motion to sell the property and sell it to Jeffrey Industries. So this is a totally different animal.
Well, that's not how it's noticed.
It's not the notice.
So let's go home.
Well, with that being said, I'll go ahead and make the motion to reconsider selling the baseball stadium, and also make the motion to consider negotiations with Jeffrey Industries.
Yes, you may. Thank you.
Let me just ask a question. Mr. Attorney, the questions that were brought up in the previous meeting has not been answered. The only one that passed the majority of the council, which was unanimously voted on by the rest of the council, was an answer from staff as whether or not we would entertain a possible splitting up of the facility.
That's correct.
Okay? That's the motion that carried. That's the live question that's out there. In my mind, that has not been answered. Is there any way that there would be any sort of an entertainment to take not a 50-50 split, 60-40, just take a look at some sort of the vision of the facility? And as of right now, that question, which passed the council's vote, has really not been answered. And we're really back to the initial question of a full sale. That question was never answered unanimously by the council. That's the one that failed in the 3-3 tie when we could not get a consensus. Okay? So the only thing in my mind that really still is out there, are we willing to take a look at a potential split of the facility in some shape or fashion. And we used the hypothetical theory that there was an existing roadway through the property, and there was a question as whether or not we properly ever vacated that right-of-way. Since then, I think Mr. LaPrade has said that has really been, all excepting maybe a short portion, properly vacated. So the issue is there is no road in the facility except for maybe a small 35-foot piece. But that still gives you a hypothetical position where you might make a split of the facility, because one of the concerns that I had personally, and I voted no for every motion that came up the last time because I wasn't clear.
Voted yes on your own.
I'm sorry, the last one.
You voted yes on your own.
But we did this master plan for our parks that showed that we have a deficiency in the future growth of the community as far as park space or open space is concerned. And the numbers are anywhere from 40 to 60 acres times 2. So if we need park space or if we need green space for the community, the object was you could still have the economic impact of one portion closer to the area outside the ACUs that could possibly be sold, still retain a portion of the property for the future growth of the community for green spaces. That was where we ended up in the last discussion, and that still is out there in a form of a motion that was unanimously supported by the ones that were here at that time. Is that the way you remember, Mayor?
Can you tell me can you tell the public what that motion said exactly? Do you remember?
Well, the motion was for the council, would the council consider a split, some sort of a split of the property? And that was what passed the council. And I think then at the end of that discussion, when the motion was carried, I believe is when you stepped up to the microphone and said if you couldn't have the entire property, you weren't interested in it. So that was kind of where it fell. So all that being said, we're back at the table again discussing the issue. And then the charter schools came involved.
Yeah, I have a question for the city attorney. If in fact what Mr. Losner is saying is true, that this has no business being here tonight, why did you allow this to happen? And the manager's office.
I think I've already stated that the meeting was properly noticed based upon the way the item is listed in the agenda for the special call. It says discussion/action on baseball stadium. As I had stated, if the same motion is made as was made at the previous meeting, then we have an issue regarding a need to have a motion to reconsider that issue. I was not at the meeting. I do not know the exact motion. Perhaps we can have the clerk get the minutes from that meeting so we can understand exactly what that motion was. As for Mr. Porter's issue with the bifurcation motion that did pass, that motion did pass. That still stands. Any action that's taken tonight that's contrary to that, though, would supersede that particular motion that passed.
Well, I think we have a motion on the floor. I believe Mr. Hodge did make a motion.
Yes, I did.
Did you not?
Yes.
Would you like to repeat the motion since it's been some time?
Well, and again, that we need to go back to the rules for a motion to reconsider, because the motion to reconsider needs to be made by one of the people who voted in the majority of the motion previously. And in this case, the majority of the motion would have been those who voted no because the motion failed. So one of the people who voted no to the prior motion would have to be the one to make a motion to reconsider.
When you're saying the prior vote of the 3-3 vote?
If the motion is to contract or direct staff to negotiate, if the motion at the last meeting was to direct staff to negotiate with JII, and that motion failed because there was a tie, the ones who voted no are the prevailing people, and one of those three people would need to be the one to make the motion to reconsider.
Madam Chair?
And I do not know who those three people were who voted no at the time. I don't know if Mr. Hodge was one of those council members.
No. Madam Chair?
Yes.
What I'm failing to understand is we got to reconsider a motion that never hit the floor. We never considered a motion for the negotiations of Jeffrey Enterprises. We never got that far. the motion that was put on the floor, again, was whether or not we were going to look at selling the park, and that's the one that tied up. The next motion that was made was a consideration of looking at maybe making a division in the park, and that's the one that passed. So a motion to negotiate with Jeffrey Industries was never considered. So we don't have to reconsider anything that's never been considered. So the motion that's been put on the floor for consideration right now is to go into negotiations with Jeffrey Industries. So we don't have to reconsider that, because it never hit the records.
We need to see the minutes.
I think we need to
Somebody checking
to
that?
back
I'll
up,
have to
because
Would you-
the advice of council at the last meeting was you first need to decide to sell the property before you can decide who to sell it to.
Right, that was the issue.
So as I'm understanding you, the only three people who could make a motion to sell this property are the three people who voted
No.
yes, correct?
Who voted no?
What I would suggest is that perhaps we take
Excuse
a
me,
5-minute recess to
Recess
look
until she
at,
pull the record.
to look at
The minutes aren't
to look at the
finished,
minutes.
but she's gone to get the tapes, I hope.
so that we can make a determination as to exactly what the motion was, exactly who voted for it, and exactly who would need to vote to reconsider on it.
Ms. Bell wants to say something before we do a recess.
There might be a little confusion about this. I made the motion not to sell. The actual motion was, at the last meeting, at the last meeting to discuss this, I went ahead and because the conversation kept going on, and one of my problems at the last meeting was that we kept lumping together the issue of whether or not to sell with a party who's interested in buying, and I thought that was a conflict, that the issue should be separate, and I had a problem with that then, and I continue to have a problem with that. We need to take each issue, that way you take the emotion out of it, you need to take each issue separate, and my problem was last time was that we were just simply discussing on whether or not to sell it, yet we had a party here that was pitching the sale, and that's what I kept glaring at Richard Weiss about, that I went ahead and made the motion not to sell, and my motion was defeated, and then Jeff Porter countered with his motion. So I don't, in all fairness, I think that we need to take a look. We need to take a look at the minutes, because even though
The minutes aren't finished.
no matter how it falls, we need to be correct, and no matter how it falls, fair is fair. And the truth is, I made the motion not to sell the property, to take it off the market, and that's the motion that failed.
That's
So
the motion
really,
that failed.
that's the accurate.
If that's
Mr.
the
Porter's motion,
case-
the one that passed.
And then Mr. Porter's motion, he countered with his motion.
Can I have one person at a time, please?
Well,
Mayor?
Madam Chair,
Thank
the
you,
motion
Vice
to not sell failed by, the Vice Mayor moved not to sell the property, and that failed 4-2. 3-3. No, 4-2.
I think it was 3-3, right?
3-3.
It was
It
3-3.
was 3-3, it failed.
And then it failed because of lack of majority.
That's correct. So that motion
It
failed.
was a tie. and it
The
failed.
motion to divide the property passed.
Correct. That is my recollection.
So you
And we
don't
always know I'm
need
right.
a reconsideration of this motion, of Mr.
I would,
You're
in
the
that case,
attorney.
I would
Well, let's wait for the
agree.
record. Let's wait for the record.
If the motion was not to sell, and the motion failed due to a tie, then the motion
different
not
question.
to sell failed.
They can bring it up.
But you're on.
Then really
You're on.
approving the sale.
That's correct.
But we
So-
need to see what the actual motion was, in which case we would not need any motion.
So if in fact the tape, well, I'm sure that Sharon's gone to get it, if in fact what we've said, what Ms. Bell has, thank you, Linda, very much for coming to the plate and saying that. If in fact that is true, then we can accept Mr. Hodges' motion if he has a second to that motion.
What I'm saying is, I don't think we need the motion to reconsider if that's the case.
Just need a new motion.
You just need a new motion.
Would be a proper.
Okay.
We just need whatever
All right.
motion you would make
Then
tonight.
let's take, Patty, was 5 minutes enough for Sharon to retrieve the information? I think so. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I'm gonna need another Coke.
To the state tree, yeah, that's right, and that may be the way to go.
I didn't mean to undermine you, but that's the actual accuracy of it, because I made the motion.
Well, there were 2-3-3 votes, 1-7 were not to sell. Yeah. Jeff made a motion not to sell. There was 3 votes. And he only got this split that I'm right. We're both right.
I'm a woman, it has to be right.
Buy the property. Then they got 3 other commissions that don't want to sell it. And I believe is when they sell it, we're gonna put an international like a symposium. Organizations throughout the world, Brazil, Colombia, TV stars, baseball, something like that. I got it. How you doing, brother? Good. Good to meet you with us. Yeah? You going with us? Yeah. I'm Richard King. What's your name? Nico. Nico? Yeah. All right, great. Fantastic. So, when are we supposed to leave? February 9th. February 9th? Because I have another associate who's going to come as well. That's good. Brian Smith. I'm going to work to see what can be done. Okay. So he was there before he came to me. Yeah, he told me. I'm looking forward to this. Me too. Let's get some industry going. All right, that's great. That's great. That's good. I didn't bring any cards with me this time. I'm trying to do low key, you understand what I'm saying? 786 712 246. Right, you'll be able to reach me Wednesday of next week. Richard Casey. 712-0346. Definitely looking forward to it. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. We got to work together. No, that's the only way. I appreciate it. Unity is the only way to success. That's good. That's good. That's good. Another good friend of mine, Roy. He's my friend. Hey, Roy, this is Hindu. Yeah, how you doing? All right. We got a project for Haiti. Okay. Happens to be more people with us to see Haiti. The beauty of Haiti. On the TV, or it's like in the newspaper. That's something you can see. Right. They got a lot of things that can happen. So I'm looking to bring more people. Why you leave it to us already? Right. So he can explain you more about it. He has. Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Right. You know, I think that our last month's meeting with the mayor task force. Okay. That would have been a good thing to y'all to bring to tonight also. Okay. We're going to next month. Yeah, that's next month. February 9th. February 9th. Come back on the 12th. On the 12th? That's going to be great. That's something, you know, when you come back, you will learn from your team. Yeah. We even got a group that we're trying to, like the rural side, get electricity. Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. Looking forward to work with you. That's good. Thank you.
And I didn't even take my neem pills. I'm sitting in Nick's seat. I have to be there. That's the honor seat. The Grouch will be the curmudgeon seat. Because I'm so far from the center of the action. I tell you, when you start out over there, it's rough. Now, when you start here and work over there, it's okay. So when I was on P&Z, you know, it was gradually boot, boot, boot. It's the design of the table. It really sucks. I have to do this to see Judy. Yeah. Or, you know, that. Yeah. Hello, Rex. How are you doing?
Yes. Steve has it. The last version on the table Are we ready? Are we ready? We're ready.
Then I call the meeting to order. Could I have a ruling, please, from the city attorney?
Steve, she's ready for you.
Can I have a ruling, please, from the city attorney?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have reviewed the minutes from the December 14th meeting. At that meeting, Vice Mayor Bell made a motion to take the property off the market and that the city retain the site. That motion failed at that meeting. So in moving forward with tonight's meeting, again, as I had said, the meeting was properly noticed. The item on the agenda is proper. There would not be any need for a motion to reconsider with respect to a motion to sell the property in general or sell the property to a particular entity, because the motion that was made was to take the property off the market. If there was to be a reconsideration of that motion, since it failed, it would need to be made by one of the people who voted against that motion.
Right.
So we are, Mr. Hodge is in order as far as making a motion, not for reconsideration, but making a motion if he chooses to do so. To
Correct.
sell the property to
Correct.
Jeffrey
There's no
Enterprises.
need for a motion to reconsider on a motion to sell. And it is proper from a procedural standpoint, without getting into all of Robert's rules,
This.
that he could make a motion to sell and it is properly before the council.
Does that motion supersede?
Ask the city
Does that
attorney.
motion supersede the motion that passed the last meeting?
Yes, that would, assuming it passes, it would supersede the motion that was passed at the
But
last
if it
meeting
doesn't pass,
with
it reverts
respect.
back to the
And
original motion.
That motion would still be in effect.
I'm very familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, but I just want to, for the public's interest, I just want to make sure we know exactly where we stand here. If we do have a motion on the floor, and if it is seconded, then we can take public comments before a vote is taken. That's
Yes.
procedural.
Yes.
All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
And I realize you're getting ready to start taking public comments, and before the public comments come, I do want to explain why I stand so firm where I stand. And from my point of view, when Jeffrey Industries came to the city to purchase this property for the exact same amount that we had already sold it to under contract to Sports World for the same dollars, Sports World came to us wanting to drag on our coattails for 20 months. And Jeffrey Industries is not coming to drag on our coattails for 20 months. They're coming to make a down payment and go to a closing and outright purchase this property from the city. The city has for years been paying $500,000 in mine and your taxes every year to maintain that piece of property. And it's been at least 12 to 14 years that this has been going on, and it's been 12 to 14 years that we've been trying to get someone to sell this property. So if you calculate the dollars, that money could go in a lot better places than to an empty building where nothing's going on. Number three reason is we have a Parks Master Plan. And the Parks Master Plan did not include this property for the simple fact that Sports World had it under contract already. Based on the Parks Master Plan, the money that we would have received from Sports World would have enhanced our current parks Also, one of the things that the Parks Master Plan implemented was, it said that in the near future, in 20 years from now, we will maybe 48 or 60 acres short of parks. It did not include the community parks that are being included in the new development that is coming online as we speak. This council has required that there's green space in every community that is being built. Not only that, there's already been planned and now funded. The county has the 200 acres just north of our borders at the Air Force Base. It's going to be implementing that park and developing that park and bringing that online. A 200-acre park that's going to be very similar to Tropical Park. Not only that, I mean, it just keeps getting better. Jeffrey Industries not only come to us and say, we're willing to purchase this property from you and make an economic impact to your community, bring jobs to your community, and at the same token, we're going to offer part of this property back to you so we can still allow you some green space. So the whole argument was about, do we have enough green space, and are we willing to get rid of this park so that we won't give up all of our green space. Well, they're working with us on that. The other item that came before us is the school. And some of you individuals are here because you want to see a charter high school. I agree with you 100%. We need a good high school in our community, and they have not X'd that out. When they first came to us, their very first presentation to us, they had caught wind that a charter high school may be possible on that property. When the first presentation that they made to this council at a CAL meeting, they said, if this is something that the city council would like to move forward, we will be willing to work with you on that. Not only will we be willing to work with you on that, but with our production abilities that we have, we would like to be able to put an arts, entertainment, learning facility within that organization, so when your kids graduate from that school, they can immediately go into an occupation on the same piece of property using those skills that they learned in high school. Now, if you got somebody that is paying you $19 million for a piece of property, and then on the same note is willing to bend and help and be a positive impact on the community as much as possible, how you would be a fool, and I use the F-O-O-L word, and I know you don't supposed to, but I'm using that word tonight because I'm just that strong about it, to not accept it. I mean, think about it. If you had a $10,000 car and somebody said, well, I'll give you $10,000 for it and still let you drive it on the weekends, I mean, come on, what better deal is that? And basically this is what this company is doing. This is what they're saying, and they're willing to put it in writing on black and white. So whatever personal ambitions is there, we need to get rid of that, because we already sold it. We sold this facility. It's just that the people who bought it couldn't pay for it. Now we got somebody that can pay for it, and we don't want to sell it anymore. I mean, we're talking within months, and they was coming to the table when it was already sold, and they sat and waited patiently for Sports World not to work. I don't get it. I don't get the hypocrite. I don't get it, because that's what we're being. If we're going to sell something and then take it back because there's a different set of people trying to purchase the property, I don't get it. They're willing to bend with us. They've done every positive impact that we can do, that we can possibly put up on them. And all I want to say is, this is another time. This is another moment for a heart check. This is another moment for a heart check. This community got to stop being selfish. It's got to stop being selfish. We got to start giving a little. Because if we don't, we're going to grow into a community that's going to miss out on a lot of opportunities in life. And that's where we're going with this. And I understand there's individuals that live in that community is worried about the traffic. You know, if we do the proper traffic studies, do the proper routing, that will not be an issue. We just had that same issue come before us with the hospital, and it worked out. These are minor issues that we impose upon ourselves that we can deal with along the way. But you cannot say, I'm going to sell to Joe and not sell to John. My thing is be fair. If you're going to be fair, be fair. Be fair across the board. I have never made a decision since I made it on council that would favor one party and not favor another. If I do it for one, I'm going to do it for the other. And that's the way I will always stand. And if there's someone here that do not appreciate that in me, then November of 2005, do not vote for me. Because I'm going to be fair. And with that said, Madam Chair, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilman Hodge.
Do we have a second?
And Vice Mayor, she has the floor now.
Thank you so much.
We don't have a second.
No, there hasn't been a second yet.
The motion.
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, one of the things I want to get to first, and this is something that has, before I get into the issues, pretty much a procedural issue, and I'm glad that we resolved the last issue, but I've been telling people for the past few weeks to separate, first of all, separate the issues. And it's appropriate that before you bring people to the table to decide, you want to do A before you do B and C. And I'm always conflicted that when we are discussing whether or not to sell, we have the people here that want to buy it as well. You need to separate the issues. You can't entertain the people you're going to sell to until you decide whether you're going to sell it or not. And I think that we're getting the cart before the horse again, and we need to be careful on our procedural issues that we really should have. There should be one motion, number one, do we sell, yes or no, then number two, then the party that desires to purchase it, then that should be entered into the picture, and it should not be lumped together. So I'm always concerned about the procedural issues. And I want to jump in right here, right now. Number one, I have a motto of not attacking the person, but attacking the issue. You should never name call somebody who has a difference of opinion than you. I think that's very offensive. Number two, the Parks Master Plan was mentioned. And let me tell you, one of the reasons that I did change my school of thinking was because of the Parks Master Plan. And if you attended the Parks Master Plan meetings as I did, and you attended the one in the Northwest section and in the workshops that we had here in council, one of the things that was very glaring is that there's going to be a huge population on the east side, and there's not going to be an adequate park to service the people on the east side, and that's where the growth is going, and that's where the majority of the population is going to be. And that we needed to, as a city council, look into purchasing approximately, if my memory serves me correctly, approximately at least 40 to 60 acres for a park on the east side. And I sat here thinking, wait a minute, we are entertaining the thought of selling 125 acres, including the lake. We're entertaining the thought of selling it, and we have somebody here that we've paid a lot of money to entertain this Parks Master Plan, and we're entertaining the thought of selling the very property that we need for the Parks Master Plan. So I thought, what's wrong with this picture? I also have been reading different publications, and we get our nation cities and our weekly cities and our Florida cities, and reading the newspaper, and one of the things I did notice that was glaring to me is that other communities are scrambling for land, and they're scrambling for parkland, and they don't have enough, and they're scrambling to purchase it, and here the city of Homestead is scrambling to sell it. So this is one of the things that changed my thinking, so I want you to understand that. Now, it was also stated that this is the same offer that we were offered from Sports World. Well, first of all, the offer from Sports World was actually $20 million. And what happened is Sports World wanted an out just in case the venture failed. Could they, have an option of converting it to something else? And we said absolutely not. And so they countered with a $19 million offer that we took. And that actually the offer was $20 million. I want to be clear on that. That being said, because somebody offered you $20 million a year ago does not mean that that's still a good offer today. And I know that. And I know that my house is worth a lot more now than it was a year ago. So that being said, also it's been mentioned about the community parks that are within the PUDs and the pods that are residing within, primarily on the east side. Those community parks, I would call them tot lots. I would not call them parks. There's hardly room to sit down and put in a slide. There's a lot of ifs about parks, the 200 acres, the Humpty Dumpty site, if. I've been hearing about the Humpty Dumpty site for about 15 years now, because I've been in the city of Homestead. I'm just a baby here. I've only been here for 25 years. So that being said, I was very interested in the analogy that was just given, that you would be a fool if somebody offered you $10,000 to buy a $10,000 car and let you drive it on the weekends. Well, I'd say you would be a fool because it's on the weekends and you need it during the week, and what if it cost you $30,000 to replace it? Yeah, you would be a fool if you sold it. Also, stop being selfish. I don't think desiring a good quality of life for your community, a place for your kids to skateboard and skate and run and jog and walk your dogs and ride the bikes and play soccer and play softball and baseball and play rugby and whatever it is. I don't think that's being selfish. I think that's a quality of life issue. And the other issue that you can't say that you're going to sell to Joe if you're not going to sell to John. Circumstances change. Things change. That's how we grow. We learn by our experiences and we grow. And we did give it a shot with Sports World, and I voted for that. I voted for that because it looked good and it sounded good, and very, very quickly, I knew very, very quickly that it was a good offer turned sour, and if I had my way, I would have evicted them a whole lot sooner. And so, that being said, I wanted to share my heart with all of you. If I'm outvoted, which often happens, because it's a reality, and if I am outvoted, I would put these conditions on the table before you. If I am outvoted and it is to sell, yay, yay, it is to sell, and then it is to sell, yes, to Jeffrey Industries, I would have as a condition that the quote-unquote 20 acres be set aside would remain in the city's control, not under Jeffrey Industries' control, and that if there was a school to be considered, and that if all things work out, and I'm not saying that they do, we have issues to work out. I'm going to have an education committee meeting next week. We're going to put all parties at the table. We're going to talk about this site. I'm not saying yeah right now. What I'm saying is if the 10 to 20 acres or so is set aside, it should remain in the control of the city of Homestead and leased to a charter school management company and remain under the auspices of the city. And that is because, number one, it would always remain a school, and number two, it would protect the school from being within a reasonable rent, from being reasonable and not being price gouged at all. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying these would be my conditions. And
Ms. Paul, may I ask you a question? Because just to clarify before you go on to another point, the 20 acres that you're saying set aside and leave in the city's control, you're saying deduct that from the price of the baseball stadium?
No, I'm not saying deduct that from the price. I'm saying that as a condition of the sale, that would remain, under those 10 to 20 acres would remain in the control, unless we wanted to go up on the price and then bargain down, because I think $19 million for 125 acres is very inexpensive, especially with land. Okay, so that would be one of my conditions, is that would remain under the control and the ownership of the city of Homestead, and that would be one of the things. Another thing that I would, I guess the right word would be demand. I would really request and demand, if I had the votes, that if the parties do not do what they stated they would do with the property, that the ownership would revert back to the city, and that there would be a very large, very, very large non-refundable deposit deposited with the city in an escrow account to guarantee that what is stated will be done, will be done. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Vice Mayor, you're not completely alone. I agree with you on many of the items, and I'm going to piggyback on what you said.
You mean not all of them?
Most of what you said.
Just the important ones.
There are 3 issues I would like to see resolved before I even look at ever selling the stadium. And we did look at Sports World, and I agree to that, but a lot of things have changed. Right. And there are things, including the Parks Master Plan, which I would like to clarify something about that. The Parks Master Plan came back calling for the east side to acquire and develop land on the east side for a community park, a new neighborhood park, a community center, to redevelop part of the baseball stadium as a special use facility, and to redevelop a small beach/boat access at the baseball stadium. Where are we going to find land for this if we sell this? I don't know. We don't have a plan, so I am not ready to sell because I don't have a plan for the parks. In addition to that, we have the Park of Commerce. We're looking at selling that right now. We need to know what's going to happen there, what's going to be built there so it's compatible with the baseball stadium before we sell the baseball stadium. The third issue that I have is the joint land use study. I don't know if any of you know, but there is an accident potential right over the baseball stadium. No large groups of people should be congregating there, including children. We have a study that's going to be coming back in maybe 6 months that will tell us, should we strengthen this, what we should do with it, because I feel that we should protect the base. And when I get all that information back, do we need to strengthen the joint land use study? Do we need to strengthen things for that? I'll look at that. I'll look at what we're doing with the Park of Commerce. I'll look if we have other lands for park. Then maybe I'd be interested in selling the baseball stadium. But right now, I'm not interested.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Porter.
Let me go back to the question that we ended up in the other meeting when you said you wouldn't be interested if we split the facility. Is that still your answer?
Well, Councilman, we've given you a park. We've tried to work with you on a charter school.
Let me get some clarification on the park, because the lake with a walking path around is really not a park. That's what I heard.
Well,
is that
I
correct?
think that it can be made into a beautiful park. I'm from Georgia, and I grew up around the Callaway Gardens. There was a lake with just flowers, and it still is a world-renowned park and picnic area for the family. And I think the same similar kind of environment can be created around that lake. Okay, I would like to make answer the Vice Mayor's comment. Yes, your house has gone up in value, I'm sure, in a year, and I hope a lot, but you've been living in that house. This is a complex that has been sitting for 12 years. It's been neglected. It's dilapidated. The playing fields that we have to look and play for television as well as world-class players are totally in ruins. The entire area, the grass, electrical, and so forth, is in dire, dire need. It will take millions of dollars to refurbish it.
Talk about the lake.
This is not quite, it's an opportunity if you know how to do it, but I have to tell you also it's been sitting there neglected for a very, very long time. I would like to invite Mr. Christides, who had stepped out.
Wait a minute.
When he was
Ms. Miller. I need you to answer my question.
And I need to
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Councilman. We have given up acreage for a park, for a charter school. We need the stadium for our
Ms. Miller,
main stadium.
his question was, would you still be interested if the land was split?
No, we would not.
Okay, see,
no, we would not.
The point, my original point was exactly that. I have not agreed to a charter school at the location. I don't consider a lake with a jogging path around it green space, okay? So that's going to be the make or break basically in the decision to continue to negotiate sale with you as an individual organization. I still think we can accomplish a lot by possibly taking a look at a split
Well,
of the
Councilman,
facility.
you want to split this property up, but you want us to pay
No,
top
ma'am.
dollar
No,
for
ma'am.
it.
No, ma'am, I am not.
We're not schmucks.
No, but wait a minute. You're suggesting that I've agreed to the dollar value. You're suggesting that I'd agree to your proposal and all that. I'm not suggesting any of that. If I'm going to entertain as an individual a sale of this property, I think we need to look at it from a position of what if we saved some for the future and what if we sold some for the present. That was my only question, because there are areas of the park or of the baseball stadium, which is not a park, that are outside the ACUs that have some value for something other than green space. The areas that I was suggesting that we possibly retain is the area that is underneath the flight line in the ACUs, which gives the lakefront access and some of the things that were mentioned in the plan for the future for the parks. So it's critical in my mind, if you're not willing to look at a potential split of the property, then I'm not willing to look at your proposal.
We will investigate that with you. I will not say a firm no, but we will entertain looking at it with you. But please keep in mind that our facility is shrinking. You know, by the more and more we keep giving and giving, and we need X amount of space to operate the programs that we want to operate. There's a lady standing behind me here that's got an international soccer program. She needs a place for soccer. We want one of those fields to be a soccer playing field. We keep doing this. Where are the fields for the programs?
No, I understand all that. There's a gentleman in the back from the Miami Sports Foundation that has ideas of his own for the facility. There's a lot of ideas for the facility. The basic comment in my mind is, I'm not necessarily saying that the charter school is going to fit there. We don't even have the proper zoning for the charter school at this time. There are zoning issues that are public processes that have to go through, and you can't guarantee that the zoning is going to allow a charter school to be there. It's not zoned for it. It's a public process. What the Air Force Base may come in and say, absolutely not, that's the federal government. So there's a little bit more of a hurdle than saying, yeah, we'll put it here. Because it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. My only argument was and still is, if we're going to spend $100,000 to create a master plan for our parks, and 10 days after we read it, we don't at least adhere to some of the advice in the plan. That's my only argument. And the Vice Mayor and I think Ms. Garner said something about, the plan calls for, in the east side of town, 2 60 to 80 acre parks minimum. That's a lot of park. And we're giving up everything in this particular aspect of this plan. And I agree with Mr. Hodge. The county needs to come forward. They got 100 plus, 200 plus acres at the Air Force Base. I don't have any control over the county. They have never really been receptive to us at all. So at this particular point, with what I have in front of me, I'm very, very leery of proceeding. And that's unfortunately my position.
May I ask a question? Has anything been done with the request that, and I'm looking at Mr. LaPrade, has anything been done from the request that Mr. Porter made as far as dividing the property up? Do you have a plan that you can give to Jeffrey Enterprises? Do we know anything from then till now?
Maybe I should
Okay.
answer that. We haven't really actively proceeded because at the end of the meeting, Jeffrey Industries got up and stated they were not interested in doing that. However, I mean, we can slice that up in just about any way that makes sense. I mean, there's nothing to prohibit us from doing that and talking about that. And just as we were talking about cutting 10 acres or 20 acres out for a potential charter school site. So, I mean, that can be negotiated and looked at. So, but we haven't really said, okay, here, you take this and we'll take that. We haven't gotten into that.
Mayor Warren. Mayor Warren.
Thank you very much. We've had a very lively discussion on this issue, and it's one that I will tell you that we have been debating for 14 years here in the city of Homestead. Let me give the new residents here a little history on this facility. because it is one that the old guard, the ones that have been here for a while, embraced in 1991 this facility for the Cleveland Indians as a training facility, a spring training facility. And we were very fortunate in 1991 to acquire $20 million of bed tax money. This money from tourists and all of Miami-Dade taxpayers to build this $20 million facility. And we had a signed contract with the Cleveland Indians to bring spring training baseball here to Homestead, first class. Well, Mother Nature destroyed that vision that we had for this facility. And as a result of that, we've been working very diligently to get a spring baseball team to come and use that facility since 1991. Because of our location, most of the professional teams have said no, it's too costly to come down to Homestead. So since 1991, the taxpayers of Homestead have been paying roughly $500,000 a year just to maintain that facility at a minimum level. And Ms. Miller just alluded to the fact that the facility is deteriorating. We have not done a very good job in maintaining. We just did not have the money. If you look at $500,000 a year for the last 14 years, you're looking at about $7 million that we put in that facility, using funds from our general fund each year to maintain it at a minimal level for the past 14 years. And to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, we can't continue to do that. It is not good business sense to do that. To let a facility, a $20 million facility to the county, we fought hard to get that $20 million from Miami-Dade County, and some people saying we'll just bulldoze it. Well, that's not a wise idea considering the effort that your leaders of the past placed in making that happen for this community. And the whole purpose of it was to bring economic development to Homestead and to bring professional baseball to Homestead and entertainment to Homestead to help the local economy. And we're here today, 14 years later, roughly, talking about what we're going to do with that facility. And let me correct some statement been made about the park master plan. From all of the surveys we received from the citizens of Homestead about the park master plan, their number one priority and their number one request was that if you sell that facility, use that money to refurbish and enhance the existing parks in Homestead. They too are deteriorating. And where are we going to get the resources to refurbish and enhance about 18 community parks that we have in this community? We have enough parks in Homestead to last us for the next 20, 25 years without building a single additional park in Homestead. And let me tell you why. 75% of the usage of the existing parks in Homestead are used by people who live outside of our community. 75%. So why would the taxpayers of Homestead continue to build additional park at pretty much $4,000 an acre cost, and we're not using what we have? So the park master plan did not take into consideration the usage. But in addition to that, we have 532 acres of mitigated land out there that we need to ask the appropriate agencies to let's use 60 to 100 acres for passive use. And we can do that, ladies and gentlemen. Just last year, we attempted to make it out a residential community and asking for permission to use that 532 acres. So the alternative, their option, the land available for any future use needs for parks for the people of Homestead for years to come. For years to come. The needs for schools in Homestead is a critical issue. A very critical issue. And I appointed the vice mayor a year ago to look at the school needs. And some of you all need to know what's coming into Homestead in terms of schools. So before we decide on a high school, we'd ask that you get an update on what schools are coming already. And I've received so many emails today and yesterday about a high school, and let me tell you, as an educator for the last 25 years, I support you on the need for high school in Homestead. And I'm willing to support based on your wishes and based on further input from the Homeowners Association out there. And I said at the last meeting, all of you need to get together through the Education Committee and bring forth the high school with the consensus that that is the primary need for the community. And if you ask for it, the committee will look at it, the Vice Mayor will come forth with a recommendation that, yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, let's set aside 20 acres for that high school, and we will do that. But we have 3K through 8 coming out there on the east side, not including the additional public schools that are going to be built on the east side. So one of the concerns that some of the residents have out there is they will be completely impacted by the number of schools on the east side. And that's where you hear the concern about the traffic and the other problems that will come as a result of these schools. But you're going to be inundated with schools on the east side. And I see the need for this high school, and I think the Vice Mayor, I know Mr. Laws and others have been put that on the table, and we need to look at it. And if it's needed, we need to support it. The charter high school existing today have done a fantastic job, and we need to continue that effort. But we also need to look at the overall picture of schools and where they're going to be placed so that you will feel comfortable that as the public schools and the charter schools are built, that we have the infrastructure in place to accommodate the needs and the services out there for those schools. But ladies and gentlemen, $500,000 a year. If we provide the school, provide the open space at the baseball facility, put that facility back on the tax rolls, that's going to generate a considerable amount of dollars to the city's coffers. The $19 million offer, the utility revenue that we will generate as a result of the operation of that facility will be about a $1.52 million cushion for our general fund budget. And you know what I want to do with those dollars that we're going to save as a result of selling that facility? We're going to reduce your taxes every year. We need to do that. We need to do that. The taxes in Homestead are extremely high, and we need to focus on, we're right in the middle at about a 7.77 millage rate. That is high. But if we could accommodate a high school, provide the open space, provide the sport and the recreational activities that Jeffries Enterprise is going to bring this community, provide jobs for this community, and be an economic generator for this community, I think it's a win-win for the taxpayers of Homestead. And it's a win-win for the park system, because one thing that nobody's mentioned, that with the deterioration of the parks in Homestead, where are we going to get the money to refurbish those parks? The idea was to sell the baseball facility, ladies and gentlemen, use those dollars to enhance and refurbish those 18 community parks in Homestead for years to come. That was the purpose. Now, if we don't have the $19 million, Ms. Wallman and her committee, Park and Rec, will not have the resources to do what we intended the use of those dollars to do with the sports complex sale. Now, where would the dollars come from? We have to look again at the taxpayers to do it. And it's unfair to the taxpayers of this community when we can take full advantage of that facility and use that revenue to refurbish the park, to reduce the taxes in this community for years to come. And that's my intentions, and that's why I fully support the sale of the baseball facility. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Hodge did ask me first, and then Mr. Losner, and then Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up, you know, first of all, you know, I do, and I will say, Vice Mayor Bell, I wasn't doing any name calling, and that wasn't the purpose of my name calling or call any names. However, I'm just saying the basis of this issue and the decisions that are being made are giving those impressions. It's not. If you don't take it personal, So I just wanted to get that out there. Now on the issue again, what we're trying to say here, and the mayor covered it very well on a lot of the economics how it will impact our community. But I want to go back to the ACUS that was brought up, and the fact that it's not safe for kids to be out there. Well, there's kids out there on soccer fields, supposed to be soccer fields every day, and there's a lot of them out there. So if the ACUS is so dangerous to have our kids out there, then we need to look at that, because then that's a liability of the city, because that's city property. I mean, so if that's the scenario, all right. Then the other issue that I want to look at also is during the election time, every one of us that was running at every forum stated that we were running for a better community, quality of life, and create economic impact to this community. The number one thing that was stated out there was Homestead do not have jobs for our local people. As a matter of fact, my personal opponent ran on that very issue. There's not enough jobs in the community. And we all promised that we would create jobs in our community. This facility, upon this sale, would right away, from day one, create over 100 jobs, close to 200 jobs right away, and more to come. Personally, I want to stick to what I say. My word is my bond. If I say I'm going to do something, I want to do just that. And I ran on that issue also. I said I was going to bring jobs to this community, and that's what I've been working on. And those are things that I've been trying to do, along with the other issues that, and maybe some of you, I understand a lot of you here don't need jobs. You're probably okay. I understand that. But there are people in our community that don't have them. There are people in our community that don't have a car to drive to Miami, to drive to Kendall. There are people in our community that need those jobs. And those jobs will create dollars, a paycheck in their bank accounts, which some of them are local banks, all right? And then they will spend those same dollars in your stores, in your businesses, and you will receive a benefit from this. Some of us, I'm pretty sure there's somebody in here that owns a hotel or has family members that do so. I'm pretty sure there's somebody in here that has a family member that owns a gas station or convenience store that's in this room. I'm almost positive that just about everybody in here has a rental property in Homestead. These dollars that will be created by giving these people a paycheck will impact every single one of you that's in here that is not for it. It's a benefit to you more than you ever could imagine and you ever would know. But you got to see the vision. You got to see the vision for more than what's been presented to you. You got to see the vision for more than what's meeting the eye. There is a long-term economic impact that could not only benefit our millage rate and taxes being reduced, but also impact us positively. When the tourists come to our community, those are economic dollars that will be spent here in Homestead. When we're televised and people want to come and move to Homestead because it presents Homestead for what it really is, a small town with a community atmosphere, but have the resources to be able to house international and national programs and entertainment. I never, and I'll be frank and honest with you, I never went to a NASCAR race until I got on council. But it's one of the most exciting things that I look forward to every year now. And it's great to be part of that and to be out there and to see the cars go around the track. And some people don't like just seeing the cars go around the track, but it's something to behold, to experience, to be out there and to feel what's going on and be part of that. And that's good. And we in Homestead need more of that. And this is an opportunity to have just that in more ways than one. It could positively impact our community, not only in entertainment, but economically. And we need to look at that. When it comes down to dollars and cents, it just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Osner?
Thank you, Ms. Waldman. I just want to reiterate, and forgive me if I kind of echo some of the comments that have already been made, but I want to reiterate some of my comments and rationale that I voted against the motion to sell a few weeks ago, or voted for the motion not to sell. Right. It's more appropriate. This is an unprecedented time in our community. Land values for any type of property skyrocket daily. We all know that. And to me, the question of whether or not to sell is a basic policy consideration. It was stated earlier that while other communities are scrambling to buy property at outrageous prices, is it really wise to be looking at divesting ourselves of our last large publicly owned land mass? Once it's gone, it's gone. And I will tell you that, when I was elected at the end of 2001, it was a financial platform. And had this question come up in early 2002, things were entirely different. And I probably would have voted to sell. But history is the best teacher I know. And my history lesson is, let's wait and see. Things have changed more rapidly in this community in the last 3 years than they have in the first 87 years of the life of this community. And my fear is that once it's gone, it's gone. And I don't even have to address the merits of this particular proposal to reach the conclusion that at this time we should not entertain any proposal to divest the city of this property. It's not appropriate. And if we were wrong in selling, we can't fix that. But if we are wrong in not selling, that's something that can be remedied in the future. Proposals that seem outrageously good here today may 6 or 8 or 10 months or a year from now seem ridiculously low. I mean, we've got an appraisal on this site right now of almost $9 million. In 1999, I think our best offer was $4 or $5 million. It's just mind-boggling. And issues have been raised tonight about the financial drain on the city and what would happen with the money and so forth. And comparing to comparing this to Sports World. Making the comparison of this to Sports World is like apples and oranges. And I voted for that, and it was more of a lease situation. It was an entirely different thing. And again, history has been my teacher, and I know better than to let go of that kind of asset. And we talked about the schools issue, and I know that's why many of you are here tonight, and there's a fear that the school question would be foreclosed if this sale was consummated with Jeffrey Industries. And this seems to be a Johnny-come-lately proposal to engender some more support. But if this goes forward, and I want to talk about, and I don't really have a sense of where this is going yet. I think it's going to be 4-3 one way or the other, but not really sure. If this goes forward, I would not be, I think we need, and maybe the motion can be clarified, to give the manager some parameters for negotiation. Again, we need the ability to retain a potential school site and bring that in and bring in the school parties and bring in the proposer to purchase and go through those issues with the military and not leave that up to the discretion of someone else. The 7 of us are accountable to you. Jeffrey Industries is not. Now, there was a question or some statements that if we do not consummate this sale, the other parks will flounder. Well, I have the Parks Master Plan here, and I didn't remember seeing it before, and I can't find it tonight. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. But nowhere in this very expensive and voluminous master plan is there a recommendation to sell the stadium in order to fund the acquisition of other properties or to fund the renovation and upgrades of other parks. It's just not here. And we all know the fact of the matter is that property or a fraction of that size property is not available to us at any price anywhere. You know, the mayor talked about earlier about the population centers being concerned about being overrun with schools. Well, where the people are is where the schools are needed. And where the people are, it's where the parks and open space is needed. And it's there on the east side, and you know, if we get to the point where we need to address the merits of this proposal, I'll do so. But in my mind, I don't need to do that. I think it's inappropriate at this time, that there are other financial considerations that we can look at, that it's not the end of the world if we don't have this $19 million. Park of Commerce could bring several $1 million. That money is not completely earmarked to be returned to the electric utility. There are grant monies. I mean, every house that was closed last year in this community is going on the tax rolls at a lot of money this year. Things are only going to get better just from the natural progression of this community, and that's something that we've never had to enjoy before. So the failure to sell this does not spell economic doom and gloom for this city or Parks and Recreation. One final point I want to make. That $500,000 a year figure has been kicked around, and maybe a few years ago that was accurate, but I talked to our Parks and Recreation Director today, and ladies and gentlemen, the actual cost of holding that property is nowhere near $500,000 a year since the end of 2001. That's just not accurate. It ranges from $165,000 to $208,000. This year it's a little more because, as the appraisers call, deferred maintenance finally needs to be done before it does fall down around our ears. But to me, it's just not good business to divest ourselves of that asset at this time for private, for-profit purposes. Thank you, Ms. Waldman.
We'll have public comments in just 1 minute. Last person, I believe the last person to speak will be Ms. Bell. She's asked permission to do so. I'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Porter. I'll do that in just a few minutes. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mrs. Waldman. I wanted to make one point going all the way back to the response from Jill, that when we talked about the original price, and I'm not going to belabor that, but I want to make a point that the $19 million price, in my mind, I don't want to sell it at all, but in my mind that price is extremely, extremely low. And she talked about the building in disrepair. The land is not in disrepair. I'm not talking about a building. I'm talking about 125 acres of a city asset that belongs to the people in the city of Homestead, and not talking about bricks and mortar. We talked about some things are brought up, and I like to dispel the myths right away, or I like to dispel things that are brought up, because we have to keep everything accurate. And sometimes things, in all honesty, are stated and they're just not accurate. You know, we talked about the Parks Master Plan and before the Parks Master Plan and what people wanted in the city of Homestead, and it was mentioned that people wanted to take the money from the sale of the sports complex and put it into the other parks, and that was why it was so dire that we sell this. Well, remember that at that time that was stated, the sports complex was sold, so it would have been a very natural thing to say to take those monies when they came in and put it towards that. So it wasn't stated purposefully. It wasn't stated that you should sell it so you get the money. It was stated because it was already sold. So it wasn't stated that people said, I want you to sell it so that you have the money. It was stated, since it was already sold, let's go ahead and use it this way. So don't be misled that that is not the reason. People were not saying sell it so it will go here. That's not accurate. It was only said as an afterthought because of the fact that it was already under contract. So I wanted to dispel that one, and to use money for the existing parks and Homestead. Also, it was mentioned that, and the mayor had a very good point about ad valorem being high at 7.75, and we've been reducing it over the last 2 years, and I am encouraged. But I want to state that, and it's no disrespect, but a sale of a property is a one-time income generator. It's non-recurring funds. You should never reduce ad valorem based on non-recurring funds. You should only reduce ad valorem based on recurring funds, which is ad valorem taxes. So as your city increases in its population, and as the population is going on the east side, as your city increases on the east side and you increase in your ad valorem taxes, that's as you reduce your ad valorem taxes because you're depending on recurring funds, not on non-recurring funds. So I think that, while $19 million is wonderful for the community, it would not be something that you'd want to reduce ad valorem tax based on a one-time sale. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's a very important point to make. Also, it's been stated time and time again, that as I've sat up here this past year, that 75% of the children who use the parks in the city of Homestead are non-residents of the city of Homestead. And my answer to that is 100% of the residents of my family lived in the city of Homestead, and we used the soccer fields every single Saturday and for practice 3 days a week. And that was 100% of my family. Plus, that was in the studies that were done, that was not taking into consideration the additional 35,000 residents on the east side. So let's remember, we have to keep everything into perspective, and an old study is an old study, not based on population coming, based on population that is existing. So I just want to bring all the information to the table, and then that way everybody can go ahead and make an educated decision in an issue. And let me tell you, I want to state to my fellow council members that we are what we are, and we believe what we believe, and when we walk away at the end of the day, there's no hard feelings here. I'm going to do what I think is best, and I know my fellow councilmen are going to do what they think is best, and I respect that. But at this time, I cannot support the sale of the city's largest contiguous piece of property that is so valuable to me. It's beyond worth, and I know that land is selling on the east side anywhere in upwards of $300,000 per acre. I've just heard of some sales for over $500,000 per acre, and then I heard a particular bank bought some land at about $1 million an acre. So I think that $135,000, $150,000 an acre is extremely, extremely low. And remember, I'm not talking about a building, I'm talking about land, irreplaceable land. And my motto is, when in doubt, do without. As Mr. Losner said earlier, if you make a mistake not to sell, you can always sell later. But if you make a mistake to sell, it's gone forever. Thank you.
Mayor Warren has asked for a final word before we go to public comment. Mayor Warren.
Well, thank you, Chairman Woolman. Just wanted to respond to the Vice Mayor comments on the savings. The reduction will come from the annual maintenance cost that is budgeted, the taxes that will be generated once we put the property back on the tax rolls, and then the utility revenues that will be generated from the use of that facility. So those dollars can be used on an annual basis to reduce our costs and also to share back with the taxpayers. So you will have an annual savings in this budget of about $1.5 million a year that can be used for a multitude of things, And one that should be considered is also the reuse in the parks and also in terms of tax reduction. So it's not the $19 million, it's a one-time benefit, but the taxes and the saving and maintenance and the utility revenues.
Thank you, Mayor Warren. I'm going to open it up now to public comments. I'd like to limit, what did I say before, a minute? Is that what I said? A minute per person, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to speak tonight.
Impossible.
Doesn't matter, whichever. Sharon will be our timekeeper. Terry.
My name is Terry Dawkins, the Regional Commissioner for American Youth Soccer Organization, which is again a national profit organization, nonprofit. You know, I've sat here and I've listened to you on 2 separate occasions. I'm so tired of hearing that kids that use these parks are non-paying tax people, when their parents own businesses that pay tax dollars for these parks. I know because my husband owns a business in the city of Homestead who pays quite a bit of taxes. And me, as a person who donates 80 hours a week to children when has no children, to give these kids a place to pay that don't have soccer fields. I hear about Humpty Dumpty. I hear about selling this land. I hear our children shouldn't be playing in that. Where do you want me to take 1,000 kids? Where do you want me to put them? There's nowhere in the master plan anywhere for kids to play soccer in the city of Homestead, non-resident or resident. I have fought you guys for 10 years that I know of. Come up here, come up here, come up here, come up here, begging you. I hear that we're going to do it for you, but nothing gets done. We just keep wanting to sell everything we've got.
It's time, Terry.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Paul Mulhern, 22540 Southwest 177 Avenue.
Be right back.
I'm very concerned with this discussion about new parks and the Parks Master Plan. It seems that there are 2 sets of rules, a set of rules for the nice, beautiful homes in the east side of Homestead that we can suddenly rush and build and plan new parks, yet we were so quick to outsource the FICO Williams Center in the southwest section of Homestead because the city couldn't afford it. The city is going to do wonderful parks programs, and they can't even come up with $10,000 to help out a Martin Luther King Day parade or the Martin Luther King breakfast or any events. We have to go out, that the tourism committee does, we have to go out and find our own money.
It's time.
Any trade shows, we find our own money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jackie Jones. 1020 Homestead Boulevard is the Inn of Homestead. I'm a business owner here in your community. I also own the building, Mario's Latin Cafe. When I heard of this, I rushed right here because I think it's such a great thing for Homestead to grow. $19 million, but what is that going to generate for you? Right now, it's just your tax dollars, and more tax dollars. I mean, the people that are not for this, they don't see the future. We want to grow. Well, I'm a business owner. I starve through the summer. I worry about paying my taxes and keeping my electric on. You've got to see that you're paying the taxes. This is you. A company like this comes in here and builds a baseball stadium. I've been in a city where they've built the baseball stadium. I've seen the buses come in and the kids and the revenues and the restaurants get busy and the hotels be busy. People have smiles on their faces. They can go and buy a steak instead of a can of tuna.
Finish your thought, and then it's time. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Farns, 475 Southeast 20th Lane in Northgate. I've been part of the Tourism Committee for 3 years now, and we have been fighting and trying to find ways of bringing tourism into the city to help the economic growth of the city. It's been one of our main focuses. We have a perfect opportunity here to use this baseball stadium as a catalyst for for our tourism efforts. It's very important that, schools are very important and a good quality of life issue. However, I personally feel that as an economic growth engine, this sale of the stadium is going to be the way that this community can help grow economically. Without the economic growth, we're just going to be a bedroom community. We need to be a full community where people can come and visit us and give them reasons to stay here and spend their money here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dory Goldman. I live at 1343 South Audubon Drive in the Villages of Homestead. I am also the executive director of the Seminole Theater, but I do not speak for the theater tonight. I speak for me. We haven't had an opportunity to address this at the board level. Someone would say, why would you want to support an effort that is bringing entertainment competition to you? And I say for Homestead, we need to become a destination, and if we're known for entertainment, we fortunately have become known for NASCAR races, and we get a lot of attention. We now need to be known as an entertainment center for performing arts and other athletics, and I think that this particular organization in this particular location at this particular time is a win-win for all of us, and it will only enhance the Seminole Theater, Arts South, and everything else that happens in the Homestead area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory.
My name is Paul Kruger. I'm a resident of Homestead, and I'm also a business owner here. I've been here about 12 years, and in all that period of time, I see that the stadium has been an unfulfilled promise made a long time ago to the people of Homestead to have an economic generator in this area. This selling the facility actually provides a means for the city council to fulfill the earlier promise to create a baseball stadium that brings money and visitors to the city. Thank you.
Kevin Sullivan, 1860 Southeast 6th Court. I'm the president of the Northgate Homeowners Council. On January 3rd, we read into the record a letter from the board of the council. January 4th, the homeowners had a meeting, and they've sent me here to put on record that we request the council to reject this proposal in an application which the neighborhoods surrounding this baseball stadium could evaluate and support. We trust our concerns and opinion will be considered. Thank you.
My name is George Perrin. I'm at 2350 Southeast 5th Court. Depending upon which side of this fence you're on, whoever comes up here feels like a fox in a chicken coop, or on the other hand, he might be a germ in a bucket of penicillin. I'm not sure which side I fall on, but please don't shoot when I get finished. I got a couple of odds and ends. I hope I don't go over my 1 minute. I've already used up half of it, I suspect. Number one, that was an excellent presentation. Had all the bells, whistles, lights, and buzzers. Very well done. Very impressive. Not much substance, but a lot very impressive. The land they're getting is worth about 2.5 times what they're going to pay for it. Market value would put this land way above what they're getting ready to pay for it. $19 million isn't even close. We're talking about land, which the Vice Mayor talked about. We're not talking about the pink elephant out there. We're talking about the land.
Time, sir, it's time. Just finish your
It's
thought.
really kind of ridiculous. My time is up? All right.
I'm sorry
Well,
to be the timekeeper.
Let me
really.
make a suggestion on the positive side of this thing. Here's, and someone's going to yell, we've already thought about this, we've already done this, it's not worthwhile, we can't do it. Probably one of your most valuable sets of property is this corner and the one right over there where Harris is. You're getting ready to move out of here, or at least you're trying to find a way that you can move out of here so that you can use this for a more commercial type activity. Why don't you take Harris Park and the YMCA, dedicate a part of that stadium to them, move them out there, make that whole thing commercial. There's your ad valorem tax right there. A little creative thinking, you could do that. You got a park here where you can put school there. Thank you. How much time is that?
sounds great. I'm Jim Tran from 2375 Southeast 7th Place. I guess I'm the only one in a room who doesn't own rental property in Homestead. I'm just an English teacher. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm not a fool. This property is worth $50 million, not $19 million. I mean, do the math, folks. Ask any real estate person here. Judy Wallman's real estate, she'll tell you right now that that property is not $19 million. That's a $50 million piece of property sitting there right now, and next year it could be 60. I really hate to see us lose the last piece of property we have that we can have other uses for, especially schools and parks. I'm sorry, that's the most important thing for our community now. That's what we need. As Will Rogers said, hey, they ain't making any more of it.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, Council. I was just wondering what...
Your name for the record, please?
My name is Evangelist Lee Variety, and I was just curious as to what would make this sale any different than the other sale, because of the fact that it was done based on the collaboration of some of the persons that are up there that would benefit people that they're associated with. And I would also like to see the record that states that this property is $100,000 to keep it up from the time that it started. I also would like to make it clear that we're dealing with taxpayers all over this whole county. Aren't the people open to the fact that we need to be able to be looking at what is the benefit to all of those that are in need, or do the haves care no more about those who are not? Have not, because we need to bring everybody up in Homestead so that we can be a community that everyone can look at and say that we care for all of our people and not just ourselves. So I hope that the $20 million that was given to you can be considered now that you have it. Okay, but let me just wrap it up. Now that you have it and you got started from the monies from all of the people, please consider the fact that it's got to be fair to everyone. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Mike Sophie. I'm Executive Director of the Miami-Dade Sports Commission. We were created in 2003. We opened our doors last year when I moved down from Tallahassee. Our mission is to generate economic activity for the county, all of the municipalities within the county, generate economic activity through sports and through amateur sports, youth sports primarily. And you have a very unique facility here that would be a great resource to generate that type of economic activity. And I would just say to you that we're here to assist you, help facilitate that in any way that we possibly can.
May I ask you a question, sir? May I ask you a question? Yes. Is this statement based on the fact that are you talking about the baseball stadium itself or the land?
We're interested in the sports complex. It's a very unique complex, and we're interested in seeing it remain a sports complex that can be used for the community as a park and recreation facility, but also as an economic generator by attracting national, regional, international sports competitions.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Roy Hardeman, 655 North 48th Street, down in Miami. The Vice Chair of the Model Cities OCED, Office of Community and Economic Development. I'm here tonight because a lot of African Americans left Liberty City coming to Homestead. Vast of them end up on the west side. And I'm just saying, think about the Homestead Air Force Base that we lost a lot of jobs at. Folks came out of Liberty City poor, and they all the way down in Homestead. And just remember, they need some jobs. And I don't want to say, they're going to be a problem, but you think about the whole gamut of what's happening across Dade County. Thank you.
Ruth Campbell, 24 Northeast 12th Street, Homestead. I will stand corrected, but the last time I looked, all of the property taxes collected in the city of Homestead does not cover the police department. It's food for thought.
That's true.
Hello, I'm Diana Wilson. I live at 2644 Southeast 21st Court. I'm a Keys Gate resident. I wish that you would sell the property to Jeffrey Enterprises. It sounds like it's a wonderful offer. It'd be great for the children of the community as well as the rest of the community. If it lowers my tax rate, I'll be happy. My taxes already were lowered a little this year, and I was very happy about that. The Park of Commerce has been for sale probably for at least 7 years. Nobody's running to buy it. So you want to mention Park of Commerce, try something else.
Hello, good evening. My name is Javier Castillo. I'm a brand new resident in the Shores at Keys Gate, and I have a little notation from all of you here, and I can say that I'm agree to sell to Jeffrey Industries, but partially, not all of it. Sell some acres to USA Charter School because it has a chance to deal directly with the city. Traffic is a price that we have to pay for progress in growing. Parks will need some acres, also keep some of this land aside for a park, okay? And if they need to change, they need to change the zoning for a charter school, because if they're changing the zoning for a lot of homes they're putting around the neighborhood, why not change it for a new high school? And I'm sorry, 7 ahead. I said get the financing from the partial land sale of some acres for the refurbishment of other park.
Sir, excuse me, if you can finish your thought, your time is about up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kamal Nassar. I live in Kendall, Northwest 137th Avenue. I'm not a resident of Homestead. However, I have worked in Homestead since Hurricane Andrew in social services, helping the poor people. And I don't know if you know this, but Homestead and Florida City and the surrounding area has one of the largest congregation of social service agencies for such a small area. And the reason for that is there's a lot of people here that need help. And one of the things that they need are jobs. I'm not saying that this is going to create jobs for everyone, but you guys have done a lot of work in bringing businesses, bringing economic generators here into this community to help with that. And this is an opportunity to continue that. I'm all for schools. I work with young people. I'm all for parks. I work with young people. They need a place. But if their parents can't work, they're not going to stay. And if their parents can't work, that just makes our job that much harder. And this is a good opportunity to do what was promised many years ago and create that economic generator to a company that seems to really want to work with you to do what they and to do something good. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Gautier. I'm here as the chairman of the Miami-Dade Sports Commission. Mike Sophie is the executive director who runs the operation on a day-to-day basis. First of all, I want to say Charter Schools USA has been mentioned as a possible operator. I have firsthand knowledge of that operation and known them for many years, and they're a first-class operator from top to bottom. The main reason I wanted to talk is because what you all may not know was the Miami-Dade Sports Commission. I was one of the founding persons to get this thing started with the Dade County, started here right here in Homestead, Florida. It was done through the vision of your ex-county manager, Steve Shiver, who quite frankly saw underutilized facilities here in the Homestead area and saw a need for youth and amateur sports. And out of that initial dialogue, we created the Miami-Dade Sports Commission to facilitate youth and amateur sports for the betterment of youth and amateurs in Dade County and inbound through economic development. The one thing I would like to say to you is this, is that there are probably only 3 facilities in all of Dade County that are state-of-the-art that are here. You have one of them. The other 2 are in Tropical and Tamiami Park, but you're one of 3. Very few places have the critical mass in the area to be able to hold large-scale events. Homestead is one of those to do that. I would ask you to focus on, even though the building may need some paint, it may need some fertilizer, that sort of thing, you still have a time in the rough.
It's time, sir.
The land is still very valuable, and I would support sports in Homestead, Florida. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Leonard, 740 Southeast 23rd Lane. I'm not naive. I have in a city in Texas, I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 5 years. You keep mentioning the land's worth $50 million, but you know there's zoning here. It's not commercial, it's not residential, it's parkland zoning. And from my experience in education, that is the lowest available price for land. And as far as the board of directors in Northgate, they do not represent all the citizens at Northgate. Thank you.
Cheryl Quinlan, 2615 Southeast 4th Place in Keysgate. If the city paid to have a group find someone to purchase the stadium and they came up with Jeffrey Industries, they'd be heralded as heroes. You know, Jeffrey Industries wants to come here. They have other options, and they want to be a part of our community, and I just don't understand what the problem is. Mr. Losner, you said we can always sell it. We can't always sell it. It's been 14 years trying to find somebody to buy that white elephant that's been sitting out there, and these people are willing to pay for it, and you can only get what you can willing to pay for it. Mr. Porter, you said, well, when it's gone, it's gone. Well, you're already talking about dividing the area. You know, and Ms. Bell, with all respect, you know, you said, well, you've been here for 25 years, but you want to lease the property to the charter schools. Remember what happened when the city leased the property to the racetrack? I mean, there was all types of problems.
I didn't say that.
You know, I mean, this is a family-friendly entertainment and sports area that wants to come down here. It's exciting for our children, for our local children, for field trips, for co-op programs. It's going to keep our dollars here. Right now, where do people in the city of Homestead go to for entertainment? They go to Kendall.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name's Jackie Romney. I live at 28520 Southwest 161 Avenue. I'm one of the 75% of non-residents that use your park facilities, and probably almost 100% of my disposable income is spent in Homestead. So I would just like to say I'm in support of the charter school. As I said, I was here Monday. I heard you approve 800 more homes to be built. As long as you continue to approve housing, you've got to support the families that move into those areas, which means you have to have a good education base. The jobs that are created by Jeffrey's Entertainment are not going to create the income. They're not going to be high-paying jobs. They're low-paying jobs. People won't be able to afford to live in the houses that are being built. My teachers might disagree with me, but the charter school, high school, I understand, would create 100 jobs, which are going to be a lot more income-based or higher-paying than Jeffrey Entertainment jobs. But I know my time's almost up. You just cannot expect to earn income off of every square inch of Homestead. It's just not possible. You're a community, and you have to support that community with education as well as entertainment. Thank you.
Any more public comments?
Ms. Waldman, I would say that we give him more than 1 minute.
I was going to beg for more than 1 minute, but hopefully I won't have to. I'm Colonel Dennis Daly from Homestead Air Reserve Base. And first of all, I'd like to say that we applaud the people of Homestead and the commissioners and the mayor and vice mayor for taking on subjects like this and opening the forum up so we have good dialogue on it. Overall, there's not a bigger supporter of community safety and quality education than the Air Force and Air Force Reserve out here at the base. We have over 2,100 families that live and work in this area, and it's our concern as well. So I want you to know that we're here with those thoughts in mind. The base has a very current air installation compatibility and use zone study that tells us what the accident potential and the safety issues are with the arrivals and departures to and from the base with aircraft. It's based on extensive footprint and track history from all other Air Force bases as well as our base here. And it's current as of 2004, so it's just been recently redone. It talks about several different accident potential zones, but one of them is called Accident Potential Zone 2, which is the furthest out from the base. In other words, it's the end limit of what we consider to be the accident potential zone. Right now, the way the ball field in the park is situated, approximately 40% of that property in its present use lies underneath the ACU's or the accident potential zone boundaries. So 6 of 10 ball fields fall underneath that white line that we call an accident potential zone. About 40% of that property is encumbered by that line. So that's a significant issue to consider. At its present use, the Air Force finds that acceptable. So when you look at the situation the way it is today, we find that acceptable. The study finds it acceptable. What happens, though, if we move on from this situation that we have right now, is we start to entertain what's called an encroachment issue. As we develop more and more in this one area, that's exactly on the center line of the arrival to runway 05 at Homestead. As we start to add more to this now, we start to build in an encroachment issue. And the guidelines published in the air compatibility use zone talks about what is not acceptable. And they're only guidelines, but they're guidelines for all of us to kind of live by and work by. And they talk about public assembly areas. They talk about cultural activities. They talk about outdoor amphitheaters. They talk about large sporting arenas as not being acceptable uses for that area. So again, as it sits now, we're okay. But as we start to look at other venues, we have to take into account the accident potential zone 2 and the guidelines that are published along with that. I'll address that in just a minute. But the things that they recommend that are acceptable uses, again, are low intensity areas. So the other significant issue that comes up is one of a legislative directed link from Florida State Bill 1604 that was passed this year, or actually last year, that links the installation commander from Homestead Air Reserve Base to the City Council to work hand in hand to decide what are appropriate uses on these accident potential zones to make sure that we don't create a problem. So that's a very important consideration because it does bind us together as partners to decide what should happen with this. Overall, well, actually recently, we've had the joint land use study that's been initiated and spoken of here, alluded to already, that's been funded by the government and the city as partners to decide what's the best use for the land use on or around Homestead Air Reserve Base and the community. That study is just in its infant stages, and it should be done in a reasonable amount of time. To me, that would be a year or less. And it takes into account all aspects of not only the ACUs, but all the different dynamics of what's going on in the community, and it decides what's the best recommendation for those areas. So because of the tie between the base and the community here, and the council here, and because of the pending JLUS that's only in its infant stages, the base's position on this is one of patience and caution, waiting for the outcome of the JLUS to decide and give us more guidance on what the outcome of the sale of the property should be, or the reuse of the property should be. Also, we find it in our best interests that the closer the link is between the military and the council and the city leaders, the safer we are on the use of this property, because so much of it does lie underneath the ACUs. So,
May I ask you a question?
sure.
Has anything changed between now and 6-7 months ago as far as the safety issue?
No,
Because I remember you spoke to us before when we were
Exactly.
when we talked about selling this to Sports World, and I'm respectfully, I'm just asking that question. Has
Well, I was
anything
not
changed?
involved in the discussion on sports.
Someone did speak from the Air Force Base. I don't
I have
know
no
who it
knowledge of
was.
that at this point.
Okay. And I believe you did give a talk
I came
here
here and I
as well.
presented the ACUs to this
Yes.
forum before. We did adopt it into the minutes of one of the meetings, and it is a public record also.
But has anything changed within the last 6 or 8 months?
Not at all.
Nothing has changed in the 6 to 8 months?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Okay, thank you.
To address the issue that came up, why was it built in the first place? Because of poor communication and lack of dialogue a long time ago. Back before we got smart on issues like encroachment, and encroachment is a safety issue, and a pure lack of dialogue, we could have moved it just a little bit this way and it would have been fine. So that's what we're trying to avoid now, and that's what HR 1604 does provide us, is the opportunity to work with the city. Sorry.
But also make an unsafe place to school with 1,600.
It depends on how you look at it. And one of the things to look at is the white line for where the ACUS falls would be the wrong place. However, the area outside the white line now becomes a moral discussion between the planners for the city and the educational planners.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Mr. Losner.
Thank you. Just in case any of you have any questions about where that ACUS line is, after the meeting, this aerial photo shows the base and the proximity of the track and the stadium to the base, and the ACUS line is drawn out, I believe, in black in that photo, so that nobody's under any misconception as to where that ACUS line lies and what's covered and what's not. And just so you know, because as we proceed with this discussion or a school discussion, that aerial photo is what we at the city make reference to when we talk about what's in and what's out.
Mr. Hodge? I hope you don't mind receiving some questions from council.
Sure. I just want to, just ask a question, and I do remember, as Ms. Wallman mentioned, I do remember someone from the Air Force Base because they were negotiating about the lights, and if they had laser lights in the sky, where would they be, how would they be pointed, the type of stadium lights that would be implemented and used. It was done at a meeting, and all of that was negotiated on. I do remember that, and when we were dealing with the sports world issue. So my question would be, the fact that you mentioned that under its current use is acceptable, but basically the future use of what we're looking at doing is basically the same current use, maybe some more volume to it, but it's basically the same use, sports facility use. So my thing would be, if it's a sports facility use and it's been used right now for a sports facility, where will the line be drawn that will create the difference in what will be acceptable and what not be acceptable? And just like someone in the crowd mentioned, a 1,600 seat high school, would that create a different issue or not? My thing is, right now we have 1,000+ kids out there using it right here and right now. So where is the line drawn? That's where we really need to see.
It's a very good question, and the line is drawn when you consider the fact that we're not concerned about outside the white line, we're concerned about inside or under the white line. And the line is when you go from low density, which is what I would describe your operation as now, to more of a high density operation. And thinking back to some of the slides that were presented earlier, when you talk about cultural activities, outdoor amphitheaters, large assemblies of people, you start to, in my mind, not without a firm definition from it, but in my mind, you start to go over the low density issue. Even though there's a large number of children out there playing soccer on Saturdays now, that doesn't happen 5 days a week or 7 days a week. So when you start to look at things throughout the month, that is where you start to derive low density versus high density, I believe.
Mayor Warren.
Madam Chair, a gentleman came forward and talked about the current zoning of the area, and I just wanted to comment because he made a lot of sense. We had some comment about the value of the property. And as you stated, 40% of that property is pretty much restricted. So that has a tremendous impact on the value of that property out there. So you can't get $50 million on a piece of property when you have 40% restriction of the property. So when you do an appraisal, all that is taken under consideration, but there's a lot of restrictions out there, ladies and gentlemen, which devalues the property. So when you look at the 120 plus acres, and you assume based on the commercial and residential value that is being netted out here in Homestead today, it's far different when you look at that facility because of the restrictions and based on the base use. So you're right on time. The zoning put tremendous restriction. So the value of the property is not what people hope it is not because of the 40% limitation.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. But the property, the property is not being sold with restrictions, so that would not lower the value of the property because the property is not being restricted. That's the whole reason why the military is weighing in on this, because 40% of it is in the ACUs, but 100% of it's going to be used, so that puts 40% of it in a danger zone, but then the other 60% would not be in a danger zone, so we're not devaluing the property because we're not limiting restrictions on use. Also, I wanted to also make a correction, though, that it's not zoned park. It's zoned, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's zoned Planned Regional Activity. That's PRAC, P-R-A-C, Planned Regional Activity Center. It's not zoned park. So the value is also, excuse me, the value is also not devalued for that reason at all. And I'm sitting here thinking about something else that we were talking about earlier about electric revenues. If I'm not mistaken, and I'll have to ask Mr. Shahada, on the east side, if the city doesn't own it, it wouldn't be the city electricity, it would be Florida Power and Light, so we wouldn't get those revenues. Am I correct on that, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, council members, I believe this is the same issue we face with the bar commerce area. Potentially we could lose it. I'm not, the attorneys have to wait on this, but potentially we could lose it.
Right, because on the east side and all the villages, that's the Florida Power and Light, that's not City of Homestead's power. So it would stand to reason that as long as it's in the city, as long as the city, well, not all of it, I know that, but as long where that land is, it would remain city power as long as it's under city ownership. But once it's sold, it would revert back to FP&L, and I'm almost positive of that. If you check me out on that, so that would take those revenues of the electricity out of the picture as well. So I just wanted to again give us a complete picture. I'm not trying to poo-poo everything, if you will. I just want to give us a complete and accurate picture. And I do want us to be very, very careful. And Colonel Daly is weighing in on here. And I did attend the Military Affairs Committee, and I did let them know that they do need to weigh in. Either way, I didn't know how they were going to weigh in. I just know that that everybody needed to weigh in equally. Every side needs to weigh in equally, because that's how we can make an educated decision. But what I think we're missing is what he's saying is the use that it is now and the use that it would be with soccer fields and being used the way it is, it's a low density use. But the use, if sold, would shoot up to a very high density use. That's the point. So I don't want you to miss that point as well. Thank you.
Excuse me, before I give the floor to Mr. Porter and then Mr. Hodge, I want to ask you a question because, and Ms. Bell, I just want clarification on this. You had said that you are not limiting use, but when you say that you're doing a study and that the line is such and such, I mean, it's where, didn't you say that where the line is right now, that it is at risk?
Well, what I'd like to point out, maybe I can clarify my remarks. Areas on the line or under the line are designated as an accident potential zone.
So on the line or
under the line?
Under the line.
So within the box, per se, that's drawn on the map.
And where does the baseball stadium fit in that? Because I'm not sure people can
the line, without going to the diagram, the line runs through home plate of the main stadium field, straight out through the middle of the park, encompassing 6 of the 10 ball fields there. Approximately, I would guess, 40% of the acreage overall. So with that,
they are at risk.
At risk defined by the accident potential zone definition in the air installation compatibility use study. that risk
That was a mouthful.
that risk for a general rule of thumb pulled from one of the tables would be in 25 years in similar installations across the country, there's been approximately 16 aircraft accidents that have impacted that area, on or around that area. So that would be in 25 years. There's a statistical analysis that would back that up.
Can we have order in the auditorium, please?
So, overall, when you say at risk, not to inflame the issue, but to simply look at what the statistical data presents, is one where it's an area where you want to modify your zoning to control what's used there and what's done there. And that's a city and zoning function. Because the new Florida bill, it allows us also to collaborate with you on those issues and give our recommendations. The ACUs is only a guideline. It's not state law, it's not federal law. It's a guideline that says amphitheaters, cultural activities, large public assemblies are not the right use for this. And we'd rather have it kept at a low density area.
All right. Excuse me.
No, the Speedway is actually outside the ACUs to the east, well outside.
Mr. Porter has a question for you, and Mr. Hodge following.
Colonel, do you see in the growth of the Air Force component or other partners that you have out there, do you see more air traffic and more traffic in the facility itself, or less traffic?
We probably don't see the traffic decreasing, but at present we don't see it increasing either. So we feel our aviation footprint at present is probably what it has been and what it will be for the near-term future. So as you know, the Base Realignment and Closure Commission will come out and make some recommendations. We may pick up some additional flying, but we're not sure at this point.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Hodge.
Well, it's been a minute. Pretty much slipped my mind there. Basically, I think the main part of it was asked is, the boundaries and where, again, you basically stated where the boundaries were and what areas that it did cross. And again, it still goes back to a perfect definition of what's not and what is, because that 40% of the park right now is being utilized, and as you stated earlier, based on your definition of the accident potential zone, that we are putting children in harm's way by letting them have their activities there.
Well, no, that's not exactly what the study says. The study says that the risk level is acceptable for low-density participation, and that 40%. So to say we're putting children at risk would probably be incongruent with what the study says. The study says it's acceptable to use those for low-density activities. Soccer would be one of them.
Well, that's a low-density activity, but when the number of growth of people are there simultaneously, I mean, think about it. I mean, just on 4th of July alone, the city hosts a 4th of July activity where there's thousands of people out there to see those fireworks. I mean, me, myself including. I mean, so what I'm getting at is, where do we actually draw the line? Because the activities are activities. The number of activities is not what should draw the line to me personally. But the fact that they're in or out, and the potential of how many within that area and not within that area. In other words, what I'm saying is, if there's 1,000+ kids under the ACUs right now, that's 1,000 potentials. Whether it was 25 or 3,000 potentials, there's still 1,000 potentials. So what I'm saying is, it's kind of like, and if I could use an analogy, it's kind of like Dade County and instituting their traffic signs. How many people will have to die for them to put the light signal in. So this is, this is where I'm coming from. If it's so dangerous, if it's such a point of it's being dangerous at whether it's low density or high density, we need to somewhere draw a line in the sand that we do not cross, because just using the opinion of okay, this number for this use is okay, but this number for that use is not okay. That is not justifiable. Well, and the reason I say it's not justifiable is because if the soccer kids, and I don't have anything against
Mr.
them.
Hodge, could you shut that back door back there? We need to give some respect to the people speaking.
If the soccer program is growing rapidly, as being mentioned, within the next year or so, there may be 15, 16, and especially with the city growing, maybe 2,000 kids out there in playing soccer under the ACUs. So where do we draw the line? When do we say stop?
Well, I think that we can. There's two issues here. The first issue is one of whatever's happened in the past for the past 10 years at that park has been ruled acceptable by both this present ACUs and the one before it. So it was fully aware of the 4th of July activities, of soccer, Little League ball, tournaments, etc., and it found that to be acceptable. How much more can it grow? That's the second issue. That's one that when you start to look at low density versus high density, you have to look at how the definitions will flow. Public assembly, cultural activities, and then look at the frequency as well as the number. And now when you compare frequency and number, you will start to approach a point where at some point it will go high density, which leads me to my second point, and that is if you don't have control of that property at that point and you reach a high density situation, now you have a valid encroachment issue, it's a valid safety issue. If the city owns it, they can retain it and change it or mitigate and modify to have work rules that or work issues that are acceptable for everybody. If you lose control of the property, we all lose control of that situation then.
And I completely understand your point. However, being the visionary council that we are, I think it'll be good for us to know what is that stopping point. That may be something we need to look at for the future, because the city is, no doubt the city is growing, and we need to know that, because when do we put ourselves in danger with what's.
And that's why we stand strongly behind the joint land use study, is that it will come out and give you a definitive purpose for that property.
If I might interrupt at this point, Mayor Warren, with your permission, I'd like to work directly with Colonel Daley on this project, because I am in charge. I'm responsible for what goes on there. So I would very much like to work with you, and I'd like some answers, because what I'm hearing is if the city retains it, even though it's still the same flight pattern, and even though everything's still the same number plus more children on the fields, the city can say it's okay to do that if the city owns the property.
At present, it's not a matter of city ownership or private ownership. It's a matter of status quo, and that's what we want to keep addressing.
But as it grows, as our population grows.
And those are things that the military base and the city government can work together on, much like we're doing now.
Okay.
To look at the growth and what does that really mean. And that would then give us time to look at the joint land use study, look at its recommendations, and those are things that you can bring into that study because you're a partner in that study. So you can say, here's our expected proposals for the next 10 years for that property. Will it fit the joint land use study? And you'll have a document in your hands that's an impartial document, not authored by me or anybody on the council, but by an independent group that says, hey, here's what's the best use for this property, and here's how far you can go with it. And that would answer Commissioner Hodges' concern also.
All right, thank you very much, Colonel Daley. It's getting late in the hour. If you have any other comments from you?
No, we would just like to, again, thank the mayor, the vice mayor, and the commissioners, as well as the people here tonight, for looking at the issue very closely. And we all need to be good stewards of the economy, or the environment, as well as the land down here, and safety is our paramount concern. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If not, Mr. Kruger, please come to the podium, please.
Just for the record, as we go forward, 60%, the 40% that's under there means there's 60% not under the ACUs. So there is some room to work with 60% of what the property is.
Mr. Kruger.
So basically, this is a question for the Colonel.
Excuse me, can we have your name again for the record?
Paul Kruger.
Thank you.
This is basically a question for the Colonel and for the Council in general with regards to the ACUS, and basically, as I understand, he's talking about a statistical risk of bodily injury to somebody there if there's an aircraft accident. But are those risks being weighed against the statistical risks of accidents driving to and from the facilities and so on? And what is the real risk of any individual at any given time being injured there as a result of an aircraft accident versus all the other risks we face driving to and from those facilities?
Thank you. Colonel Day, would you like to answer that?
Well, the ACUS study is really not a comparison between accident and highway risk and aviation risk. It's strictly a measure of aviation risk based on a historical study for 25 years across many military installations across the country. So it looks at the distance out from the runway, both in width and length out, and it takes it all the way out as far as the statistics talk about where the probability of an accident happening is. And that's how it's derived. So I'm sorry, but it really doesn't compare. So,
Thank
is
you.
That an answer to your question?
Colonel Bailey, Councilwoman
Thank you.
Wallman, can I ask a question for him?
Yes, but then I'm closing the public hearing. Vice
Colonel
Mayor,
Bailey,
that's it.
Stay put for 1 second, please. Thank you. Also, I want to say thank you for coming here tonight. And I didn't know, which either way it would go, but I knew you needed to weigh in because it's very important to this council where the military stands, and we know that we have to work with, not only because of state law, but because it's just the right thing to do. Also, I wanted to clarify something. There seems to be a conception or a misconception that when they talk about density, it's just simply referring to numbers. It's not referring to numbers. It's the, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the overall package. It's the timing, the density, it's how many, plus are they there 9 to 5, or are they just there 6 o'clock at night till 7:30 at night? See, if they're just practicing at night from 6 to 7:30 and then they're playing on Saturdays, the risk is extremely minimal. If it's a Monday through Saturday operation, then the risk continues to increase. So it's not just quantity, it's timing, it's all of the package that brings in a joint land use study and follows through with the ACUs.
And the ACUs, that's exactly right.
Okay.
The highest probability of something is during normal flying hours, which are daylight hours Monday through Friday.
Right.
So when the fields are empty, or during that period, 10 o'clock in the morning to 11, 1 to 2 in the afternoon when our peak flying hours are, well, that lowers the risk. So when you start to derive the basis for the study, it takes all those factors into account. It does take into account the 4th of July, evening concerts, Saturday practice, and so on, but it mixes it all together and decides.
And that's why I wanted to point that out, because there seems to be a misconception that it's numbers only, and it's not. It's the whole package.
There was another good question that came up as I was walking back, and that was, does this box grow? And no, it doesn't. It stays a white line that will be the same in this AQ study and the next one. So it's not something that's going to keep growing and growing at this point. So.
Thank you. I was closing the public comments, but Mr. Rovardi, you were standing there, so you are the final public comment. Please make your comments very brief.
I'm just curious as to...
Excuse me, your name again for the record, please.
Evangelist Lee Variety. And I'm just curious as to the sporting activities that are taking place now at the racetrack. Is it any different in reference to the activities that we're talking about? Because there are many activities taking place during the week, and I'm curious as to...
They're not under the ACUS.
Pardon?
They're not under the ACUS.
No, I'm saying in reference to he was saying about the flying.
It doesn't have a thing to do with it.
Because I know that there are many activities. I'm just curious, though.
No, I understand. It doesn't have a thing to do with it. They're completely out of the box. They're fine.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you. All right, I've been very patient. I've let everybody talk over and over and over and over and over, and I've been very, very quiet, and I can see where the votes are tonight. So with that being said, I do want to say to you, to all of you, that Parks and Recs has been my utmost importance. I've done my very best. I think we all know what's needed here. We all want parks. We all want passive parks. And actually, passive parks were number one on our survey when we talked one-on-one to people. They wanted shade trees. They wanted quality of life. You know, that was number one on their list. So with all that being said, and I have a question for the manager's office. We talk about the facility, what we're going to do. You know, people have really nice ideas about the stadium itself. I know what that stadium, I know the condition of that stadium. That stadium is falling apart. And if it hadn't been for the money that we raised with Second Wind, when we went in there and we put some, as Marlene calls it, rouge and lipstick on it, and put some Band-Aids and taped it together. I mean, just at the fireworks display last 4th of July, I was raising a shutter, and the whole thing fell off and hit my grandson. I mean, you know, so and I know that's just cosmetic, but I'm talking about the place is in total disrepair. Do we have any money in the budget to repair the stadium?
We did budget some money this year, which reflects as the increased operational budget for out there. Probably a little over $100,000 in terms of maintenance type activities. We also have used Tropics out there to do the maintenance on that area.
But last time I was out there, I mean, there were big holes and leaks and big puddles of water in the middle of the floor, and it was just unbelievable.
We do not have the money to bring it back into anything even resembling a pristine condition at the moment. So, I mean, that's an issue we're going to continue to deal with.
I know we've talked about it. We've talked about it in Parks and Recs. We've talked about if the sale didn't go through, imploding the building and having the debris taken away. That's been something that we've talked about over and over here in City Hall. Is that something that the manager's office is considering?
Well, again, I think when this is settled, you know, that
I'm just asking if the sale doesn't go through.
I mean, that's a possibility. Absolutely, that'll be something again we'll bring up for a decision that could come before council again as a decision. We're going to have to move on to the next phase here for the baseball stadium, depending on what happens tonight.
Also, I'd like to get an update on Humpty Dumpty Park. There was a comment made that promises have been made. I know what's happening, but I would like for the manager's office to let us know the next step.
We have, as a matter of fact, we have a meeting tomorrow with our vendors, our consultants. We're finalizing the response to Dade County Durham that's requested by Dade County Durham. It's been going back and forth to do the mitigation and put the mitigation plan as a park. There was some speculation that maybe there could be a school site there as well. We've said no, we just want to move forward, do a park, because every time you come up with something new there, that it just continues to extend that time frame. So I think we're locking it, coming in and locking that down to move forward there to start the mitigation plan as a park. We also have a part of that park that was not a former landfill. So we're also meeting with Mr. Latner's representatives and beginning to look at a portion of that that's not former landfill to start working on doing something there as well.
What's the projected time for the park to be ready?
Ready?
Ready.
I could give you an outside figure, but it probably be no sooner than the end of this year,
okay,
and maybe into next. That's a ballpark.
And Mr. Manager, the funds are available through the county for?
Well, for the bonds, we had $3.5 million for that to assist. We also have monies that the developers have collected from the builders. The developer, Michael Latner, has collected from each of the units sold in the Valencia area there to be put toward the park. And we also have the impact fee issue that can, and that goes for everything, but could be used as well.
Okay. All right, in summation, I just want to say that after hearing the comments from many people, many business owners, many people who live here in this community, I agree that we do need schools. Every person that's emailed me, I hope that you know that I've emailed you back. I've responded to all of your correspondence in the last 2 days, And I'm not opposed to a charter school. I want you to know that. I'm not opposed to that. I just thought we could have a win-win situation. I put it on the record back in October that we do need, I'm not going to say we do need, we were depending on the sale of the stadium to further enhance all the parks in our area and to bring some really beautiful changes. So with that being said, Sharon, could you read back the motion, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hodge moved, Mayor Warren second, to reconsider selling the baseball stadium and to renegotiate to Jeffrey Industries.
Before we vote on the motion, I'd like to ask the city attorney a question, please. If this motion is voted down, excuse me?
Excuse me, I don't think that was the motion. It was not a motion to reconsider. There's
No, it
nothing
wasn't to reconsider. It was a motion to sell.
To sell, yes.
To Jeffrey Industries.
She didn't say, you didn't say reconsider, did you?
I heard the word reconsider.
No, I understood reconsider when.
Oh, no.
Well, to reconsider selling the baseball stadium. So from the.
Oh, she's not.
It should just
she's
be a
not
flat
saying.
motion to sell.
Okay, to sell, yes.
Okay, can we just have it read back then exactly what
Yes.
the motion is so we don't have any confusion?
To sell the baseball stadium and to negotiate to Jeffrey Industries.
With Jeffrey.
With Jeffrey Industries.
That's the motion.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question before we call the vote. If the vote is negative, if it's voted no, then what is the procedure if they do decide to look at a portion of the property, as Mr. Porter had suggested that they do so? What would be the procedure with that? Would they be able to come back?
If this motion passes tonight, and again, just so we clarify, it's a motion to sell the baseball stadium, meaning the entire property, and to negotiate with Jeffrey Industries. Unless that motion, if it does not pass, unless it's reconsidered by the next meeting, the effect of that motion would be that the entire baseball stadium could not be sold at any point in time, and you could not negotiate with Jeffrey Industries.
But my question is, if they're willing to take a portion of the property, as Mr. Porter suggested, and ask the question.
I think that would probably be a different motion if it were less than the entire baseball stadium.
Okay, it's very important that we clarify this.
I agree, because once
Because
you-
it was,
once
Mr.
you-
Porter asked the question, they answered the question, they said they would consider it, and I don't want to cause a problem like we had this time. I want it to be, very clear.
I agree, and just to clarify, if the motion does not pass, a reconsideration can only be made at the next regular meeting after this motion has been passed.
And that's to sell the whole baseball,
That would
the
be to
whole
sell the whole stadium.
property. Okay. But another motion could be made to sell half, wherever the boundaries are located.
I would say anything up to the whole stadium.
Up to the whole, okay, got it. I just wanted to be clear. With that being said, I'd like to call the vote. Mayor Clerk, City Clerk. Getting tired.
Okay, Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
Mr. Losner?
No.
Mr. Porter?
No.
Mrs. Bell?
No.
Ms. Garner?
No.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Mrs. Waldman?
Yes.
4-3, it failed.
Feels good to win one.